Go to test. Can you guys hear me? Are we ready?
I hear you, Steve.
All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Sorry for a couple second delay and technical difficulties. Let's get rocking and rolling. We will jump right to the agenda adoption. And I do have some changes for the agenda I'll entertain as part of this adoption. When we go to the consent agenda 2F, we're going to remove 2F and move it to new business 6I. So the agenda change will be to move 2F to 6I. Can I get a motion for that?
Motion to approve.
Right here.
Second.
James. I hear neither. Does anybody say anything, or am I the only one?
I said second, Steve.
Smith was the first.
I can't hear anything. Somebody speak up again. I'm having.
Smith as a first, as a motion to approve.
I second it. Russo, second it.
I'm hearing it through hers, but I can't hear it through my phone. Hang on one second. I did. I just started it. All right, I need somebody to say something so I can test this out.
Smith to approve.
There we go. We got a motion on the floor.
Second.
Properly second by Mr. Russo. Won't go into any more discussion. I'm just going to walk back down the list. Councilman Ron.
Approve.
Councilman John. John is out today. Councilman Rodney.
Approve.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
Approved.
Councilman Troy. Councilwoman Diamond.
Approved.
All right, so Troy is trying to get connected in, so I think we have enough to move forward. So I'm sorry. The motion was to change the agenda from consent agenda item 2F to move to 6I, new business. All right, thank you for that. We will move to invocation. My buddy, Councilman Rick Russo.
Please bow your heads. Lord, thank you for every day you bring us sunshine. Thank you for every day you bring us the freedom that we all enjoy. Please help us from getting away from this terrible, terrible virus that we're all experiencing. And help us all to make great decisions tonight on behalf of the town of Harrisburg. In Jesus' name, we pray.
Thank you, Rick. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to jump down to public comment. Today, it's going to be a little bit different than in the past. We'll open up public comment as well as the chat window. If you wish to communicate that you would like to speak, please do so in the chat window. Upon conclusion of public comment, the chat window will be shut down just to try to keep the comment section as just a comment section. So I'm going to open it up to anyone out there. If you want to if you want to go through the chat window, that's fine. If not, just yell out. We'll try to keep law and order. And before we go there, I'm going to I know our town manager Haynes has actually got a public comment email that he would like to read. So I'll let him do that while this gets queued up.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So we did receive, obviously, when we have these virtual meetings, we've been giving the public the opportunity to submit voicemails or emails that we read aloud and make a part of the official record of the minutes of the meeting. So we did receive one email and asked to be read aloud during public comment. So this email comes from Michael Campbell. Mr. Campbell lives at 7828 Grimsby Circle in Harrisburg, and his email reads, as a retired nationally certified senior professional in human resources by the Society of Human Resource Management, I would like to offer my opinion on the recent issues in Harrisburg as I understand it. I offer my opinion based on what I have read in the media and from talking to others in the community. I do not follow social media as I do not find it credible in many cases. Based on extensive training from the Society of Human Resource Management, my completion of diversity training from the Memphis Institute, and a 20-plus year career managing human resource policies, including investigating related behavior, I feel Councilperson Stetton Williams' comments of shutting off discussion related to her statement is wrong. All I have ever learned or found to be productive involved open conversation and the ability to hear others' opinions even when one does not agree. Inclusion includes hearing all sides and opinions with the intention of understanding the other's perspective. We all come from different backgrounds regarding customs, education, and life experiences, and to understand each other, we need to communicate honestly and fairly. Thank you. That's the only email that we received for public comment.
All right, so we'll go back to the audience. Oop, I'm on mute, sorry. We'll go back to the audience. Anybody wishes to address council during this time, either state your name or hit us in the chat window. Quiet crowd today. I'll give you one last chance before we move on through the agenda. I'm going to back up for a second. We do have Chuck Collier on the line, and I neglected to add this as part of special presentations. Shame on me. So I'm going to go to Chuck to talk about racial equity, Cabarrus racial equity, one of those three, just to give us a quick chat about that, if you guys don't mind.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Chuck Collier here, and I see that my camera's not on, so I guess you'll hear me. But I would like to thank the mayor for inviting me and also to address the city council members of Harrisburg. Racial Equity Cabarrus has been in existence for about 3 years, and we began offering 2-day workshops, racial equity workshops, in Cabarrus County in March of 2018. Because we are unable to get into the Charlotte 2-day workshops, and the closest workshop is in Greensboro, and I attended that one. So since March of 2018, we really began going after Concord and Cabarrus County officials, which included the police chief of Concord, Cabarrus County School Superintendent, Kannapolis City School Superintendent, Fire Department in Concord, talked to Mike Long and offered these workshops to him. And so we began doing the workshops in March of 2018. The Concord police chief, knowing that Mecklenburg County, Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department had been sending their police there to these workshops for about 7 or 8 years. He sent 7 to the first workshop in March of 2018, including himself, his deputy, and his leadership team. When I went around and talked to all the folks in Concord and Cabarrus County, I told them to please send their leaders, send their people who have an influence in the budget, send their people who are going to influence other people. And so the police chief brought his command staff. Cabarrus County School, Chris Louder, superintendent, brought 2 of his assistant superintendents, and Chip Buckwell brought 2 of his. So since that first meeting of 40 people, we've had 23 total workshops and over 800 people have attended, including 260 administrators and teachers from Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools. Kannapolis City Schools values this so much that they pay not only the $225 fee, but they pay for substitute teachers for their teachers so that they can attend. And this two-day workshop is about the history of our country, the historical foundations of racism, and it defines the terms, some terms like race and racism, systemic racism, and those sorts of things. It also demonstrates or makes evident the fact that we have institutionalized racism in every one of our systems, including criminal justice, which is both law enforcement and the judicial branch, education, healthcare, the housing and employment systems. So one of the things that you really walk away from after going to these workshops is you really have an understanding of how pervasive racism and the impact of racism is on our community. For example, in Cabarrus County Schools, which your children attend, blacks are 3.8 times more likely to be suspended for the same infractions as white kids. Black youth are 5.6 times more likely to be referred to the juvenile delinquency courts than white kids. We know from the coronavirus that blacks are 3 times more likely to contract the coronavirus and a little over 3 times more likely to die from it. So that speaks to healthcare. In fact, in Mecklenburg County, not our county, but in Mecklenburg, maternal mortality, that is mothers who within the first year of birth, of having a child, are 5 times more likely to die than white women. Black women are 5 times more likely to die than white women. And it doesn't matter about education. One would think, well, that includes Black women who have a master's degree and law degrees when compared to white women who have not graduated from high school. Black women are still more likely to die. So I say these things, I give you these statistics to demonstrate really that racism exists across systems and that we can predict outcomes by knowing the race of a person. So that's why we do these racial equity workshops. In addition, next, Saturday, July 25th, we have a 3-hour course. That's Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to noon. We have a 3-hour course available. One city council member and the mayor have signed up. That talks about the characteristics of modern day racial inequity. And it presents participants an analysis that they'll really find helpful. So it demonstrates really across these systems, healthcare, criminal justice, education, housing, and employment, that blacks are in North Carolina, blacks are 2 to 5 times more likely than white people to have bad outcomes. So I think it's really important. The mayor has talked about in your meeting last month about a racial equity task force. And so I think it's really important to become aware of what the figures or what the data shows. And that's why I invite you to attend this groundwater presentation. It's also available on July 30th, which is a Thursday afternoon. And Racial Equity Cabarrus is putting that on, as is Racial Equity Rowan. So Rowan County has begun doing this too. I have a question from Rebecca Herrick. And I am not familiar with Belt Curve by Charles Murray to help council members make decisions regarding racial relations. I'm not familiar with that book, but I will look it up. So I think I would, with regard to a racial equity task force, I think it's really important for those people who serve on the task force to answer some questions for you. I'd recommend that the task force report to the city council and with their findings as they look at systems and do research on the systems in Harrisburg. And I'd recommend that at a minimum, they receive training to prepare them to serve on the task force. I've made the same recommendation to Mayor Hennett and city manager in Kannapolis, and also city council members and the mayor of Concord. It's unless you really have some background and understand how pervasive racism is across our systems, it's really difficult to understand the racial inequity that exists. And furthermore, it's also impossible to visualize what racial equity might look like. So I think that this opportunity that on July 25th, and you can sign up for that, it's $25. You can sign up for that by going to the Racial Equity Rowan website. And I can send that to the mayor. We're just almost full. We only have 2 slots remaining. It is virtual, of course, so it's online, it's Zoom, just like this. But I think that you'll find that interesting, and I invite you to attend that. I think that pretty well concludes what I wanted to tell you all. Do you all have any questions for me?
Any questions for Chuck? And thank you very much for that, Chuck. All right, hearing none. Appreciate it, Chuck. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
All right.
Mayor, I had a question for you on that. Are we limited to our amount of council that can be in these?
Since it's a committee, we're still limited to 3 actual serving at one time, because obviously we'd have to make the meeting public each time we actually held the meeting. So we're just trying to avoid having to go to a public session each time.
Well, I was talking about for the racial equity.
Oh, since it's Zoom, I'm looking to Rich online. It's a Zoom session class. It just would happen to be it could be more than 3 council members in the Zoom class.
Right.
Rich, can you comment on that? You come off the mute. You're on mute, Rich. Can you take him off mute, James? All right, you're good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was trying to unmute the wrong microphone. Since you're talking about a virtual meeting for a committee, I think all we need to do in order to be—
No, Rich, just want to clarify. This is actually a training class, kind of an education seminar for 3 hours, unrelated to our committee. It's just open to the committee as well as council members for racial equity training.
Well, if we know that we're going to have, more than a quorum attend it, then I think all we can do is just advertise that there will be that number of people at the hearing, or what, not in the hearing, but
The training session. Yep.
the training session. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. That's all we got. That's what we do in every other situation like that.
Okay. So we'll, if more than right now it's 2 of us, and it's they're still open for 2 slots in this, I guess, whoever the other council person is that signed up for the Saturday session. And I'll defer to Chuck. Chuck, I'm assuming the 2 council members signed up for the same session, or are we split between the Thursday and the Saturday? Chuck is still out there.
I'm here. I don't recall. I think you're both signed up for the 25th.
Okay, the Saturday session.
Right, the Saturday session. As I say, there are 2 remaining slots for racial equity Cabarrus, and there are 20 slots available for racial equity Rowan. Now, they're the same sessions. We just partnered with racial equity Rowan to split 50 and 50 on the 25th and on the 30th. So it really makes no difference which one you go to. They're the same sessions. They're both exactly the same.
So council, if you choose to sign up for the 2 slots on the first one, it doesn't matter because it'll just be 3 of you, but for the Rowan version of it, let Janet know so she can properly post it if more than 3 of you are going to sign up for that. I will just leave it at that. All right, thanks, Chuck. We're going to move along. We're going to go to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Smith, motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor, properly seconded by Mr. Russo. I'm going to go down the line. All in favor say aye. Ron Smith.
Aye.
Councilman John is out. Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We're going to move to Town Manager's monthly report.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple updates for the community and council, and then want to actually have one item that I want to run by council and get direction on. As far as the updates go, really excited and proud to announce that the town of Harrisburg was acknowledged by the Charlotte Business Journal as the healthiest employer in the Charlotte region for employers who have 100 to 499 employees. So last year, the town was recognized as the healthiest employer by Charlotte Business Journal for employers with up to 99 employees. But we've recently gone over that 99 employee threshold. So we stepped up, I guess, in the groups for consideration. But this award and recognition is given to employers who have a focus on health and wellness for their employers. So they offer health fairs, trainings, access and promotion and encouragement of healthy living, everything from exercise to nutrition to financial management to personal welfare. So our human resources department and a lot of our staff, we have a great deal of staff who participate in this via our wellness committee internally here with the town. We've put in a lot of these processes and opportunities for our staff over the last several years, and it's nice for that to be recognized by the Charlotte Business Journal. So Harrisburg can give itself a pat on the back saying we're number 1 in the Charlotte region for that. So that's a pretty big deal, and I want to say thank you to the town council for supporting that and allowing those initiatives to take place through our wellness program. So very exciting for that, and we look forward to that publication coming out soon. I also want to congratulate the winners of our July 4th contest. So since we weren't able to have our normal parade and July 4th festival as we would typically, we offered several different opportunities for the community to become engaged and participate, and several of those were art contests. And so I want to congratulate all of the winners for those. You guys will be highlighted on our social media and website, and your artwork will display in Town Hall when we get the chance to open that back up to the public. Another update is related to the Harrisburg Park and the progress of the construction related to it. Obviously, our intention was to open the park with our July 4th ceremony and event. And when we canceled that event, we were able to sort of take our foot off of the gas pedal a little bit with the construction of that project. But we had several things that have led to some delays in getting that project further along than what we had hoped it would be. First of all, our wet weather that we incurred during March, April, and May. We had some of the wettest months on record, and they lost over 60 days, over 60 construction days out there on a 304-day construction project. So they were impacted significantly by the weather. We also had several manufacturers of things out there who shut down their facilities from manufacturing due to COVID-19. So between COVID-19, the wet weather, and not having a push to open the park up for the July 4th event, we're seeing a little bit of a delay in opening there. But right now, we're still hopeful that we will open the park up sometime in early to mid-August. So we're not too much further away from getting done. Things are really starting to take shape out there and really come around. So each day you go out there, it's something new has happened and something new is in place. So we're really excited to get that park opened as quickly as we can. We will soft open it to the public once it's ready to go. So we don't intend to have any amenity held back or closed. If we're able to get it open, we're going to get it open as quickly as we can. In saying that, the town has also been planning for a reopening event out at Harrisburg Park. We had tentatively set that date for August 29th for the event, but unfortunately, due to us still remaining in phase 2 via the governor's orders and the unlikelihood of us coming out of even phase 3 by the end of August, we are already considering future dates. We may come back to council as well in the future and get some guidance on whether or not we should even consider moving forward with such a mass gathering event for the remainder of 2020. We don't need to make that decision right now, but I just want to put that out there that is on our radar and something that we are contemplating as we track the data and progress of COVID-19. So the only other item that I would like to introduce to council for consideration and feedback on is related to the requirement of wearing masks by the public when they visit town facilities. So this is separate from the North Carolina governor's orders for wearing masks out in public. If you go and look at his order, it actually exempts local government and state government buildings and facilities from the mask requirement. And so the reason that was done is the governor wanted to give each individual state government and local government the opportunity to make their own rules when it comes to a face covering requirement. So internally for us with staff, we've implemented several safety precautions and measures for our staff as they work on a daily basis and interact with each other. And we are requiring our employees to mask if they are unable to maintain 6 feet social distance or if they're inside in a room together. So we've got those processes and procedures in place internally for staff, but town staff is not able to also require that mandate of the public. So when we get the opportunity to open our town hall and our other public facing facilities back open, we would need guidance from the town council on whether or not we want to require masks for individuals who use those facilities and those places. That can be anywhere from town hall to Parks and Recreation, planning department, public works department, facilities where people go and interact with staff. But that also applies to facilities in general. So consider our parks. So that particular application of a mask or face covering requirement could be applied to facilities such as parks. So just want to get guidance from council tonight on whether or not you would support requiring masks when we do open up. Again, if you want further discussion and decision to be made on this, I think that we have time to do that, as we're not looking to open up our facilities anytime in the next several weeks, or at least before our August council meeting. So we can certainly have additional discussion and feedback from that, but wanted to just introduce that idea to let you guys know we as staff do not have the ability to make that mandate or that requirement. That would require a motion and approval by the town council for us to do that. So just throwing that out there. I'll take any comments or questions you have on any of those items.
Hey, Haynes, Rick Russo here. Well, I'd want to definitely do something if we're paying for the fireworks before the end of the year. If we end up not having a 4th of July or a park opening or whatever. But I'm just glad we never really wanted to do the 4th of July because it got backed up, and that's I didn't want to be caught having something that wasn't done.
Yeah, we can definitely look at making sure if there's any deposit out there, like you mentioned, for fireworks. We will investigate what length of time we have to be able to utilize the deposit that we paid on that. And if we find that we will potentially lose any money, we'll definitely come back and update council on that. And maybe we can schedule an event for that to be done later in the year.
I thought earlier you were saying that we had all year to do it and not lose the deposit.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we have until the end of 2020, I believe was the last communication that we got from the fireworks vendor to utilize those funds. But with obviously the impact of COVID, we can go back to them and see if that is a hard date that we would have to utilize that by. And we'll make sure we communicate that back to council.
Thank you.
Councilman Selberg, I have a question, Haynes. If maybe we could have staff look into a New Year's Eve celebration. I don't know how that would fit into what staff could fit into their schedule, but that's another major holiday that is coming up in the far enough future that we may be able to see progression in the COVID scenario.
Yep, we'll entertain any type of event if we can feel like we can do it safely. We're all ears.
Haynes, so you need a motion for your mask for town hall?
Yes, sir. If council is willing to go ahead and are comfortable with that, then I just need a simple motion from the council to require face coverings at all town facilities. Facilities meaning, again, anything internal and external.
I'll give you the motion for mask at all town facilities.
Second.
Second.
All right, we got a motion on the floor properly seconded. Any more discussion? I'm gonna go down the
How
list.
will this be,
Go ahead.
how will this be handled if no one's wearing a mask out in the parks?
So from an enforcement standpoint, we would treat it just like we are currently doing with the governor's order. We've been very fortunate that the public has voluntarily abided by the governor's orders and are wearing masks. Now, not 100%, of course, but we are seeing a very high number out in public wearing masks. So from an enforcement standpoint, both the Cabarrus Health Alliance and law enforcement are using an educational method first. So if they see it, they will approach the individuals, try to educate them about the importance of wearing a mask. Likely there would be no criminal citation or anything like that. It would be more of an educational attempt to address those that are not compliant.
Will people be asked to leave a facility, a building, if they do not wear?
It depends on the situation, but potentially, yeah. So I would, for instance, a park facility, it's unlikely that we would ask someone to remove themselves from an outdoor facility. But indoors, if we found ourselves or our staff in a position where we were compromised by an individual who was not following that mandate, yes, we could ask them to be removed from the facility. But we could do that anyway under just the protection of the safety of employees.
Mayor, Councilman Selberg, I have a question. Haynes, my question is, we would follow the state mandates that are currently there, and once the state lifted their mandates, we would then follow that. Is that correct in this motion that Mr. Smith has given?
That would be the recommendation. Yes, sir. Councilman Smith, I think you're muted.
Would it include the athletes? Such as kids participating in basketball, baseball, etc.
That's a very good question that we can definitely flush out on that regard. Right now, we don't even know if we're anticipating we will be able to have youth sports, but at this point, nothing is guaranteed to us moving forward. But you can make an exemption for those participating in youth athletics or adult athletics.
I would like to see that exemption in there if possible.
You want to add that to the motion?
Can you add that to your motion, Ron?
Yeah, I'll amend the motion to add an exception for athletes or adult sports and youth sports.
So we got a motion on the floor by Councilman Ron. Who seconded it, or did anybody second it yet? Oh, Councilman Diamond seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Go down the list. Councilman Ron,
Aye.
Councilman Rodney,
Aye.
Councilman Ian,
Aye.
Councilman Rick,
Aye.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilman Diamond, sorry, Councilwoman Diamond. I'm messing up today. Motion passes. Thank you.
And we do actually have a finance report briefly. I know the last couple of months we have avoided that, but with we don't want too much time to go by without giving an opportunity for them to give an update to both the public and the council. So I'll turn it over to our newly appointed finance director. So Brian Lee has previously served as our deputy finance director. And as of July 1st, he took over the role as finance director as Lee Connor moved up from finance director to assistant town manager. So congratulations to both of those individuals on their new appointments, and we'll turn it over for Brian's finance report.
All right. Thank you, Haynes. Appreciate that. Can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me through the speakers? Okay. So I've got our revenue and expense dashboard tonight. Reporting as of June 30th. And all of our revenue is right in range with what we're expecting. General fund and water and sewer fund are just a couple points off from our 100% target for the year. Stormwater is showing at 91%, but in that budget number, we have $80,000 that is supposed to go towards the stormwater regional detention pond. And as we know, that's not going to happen this year. So when you back that 80,000 of revenue out, the stormwater fund actually came in at over 100% of anticipated revenue. All of our departments stayed within their budgets for the year. As you can see down the right side, all the departments are in green. I do want to point out economic development at 23% at the bottom of the page, and engineering at 24% on this page. Both of those departments have a lot of studies, big plans, professional service type projects in them that have gone under contract as of the end of the year, but don't have any expenditures towards those contracts thus far. But those have been carried into fiscal year 21, so you'll see those budgets adjusted for 21. We also have our capital dashboard. These are our single year projects, and we added a couple things for this month's report that you didn't see last year, and that's the fiscal year column on the left. As you know, these are called single year projects, but some of them do spill over to another year. So we wanted to make sure that we represented those projects that are from a previous fiscal year. And then also we added the target start date column. This was in response to our need to pull back on spending due to COVID. And so what we've done here is identified any projects that we're going to hold off until at least January until we can see that revenue impact and not authorize the start of that project. So the Back Creek Greenway, as well as the annual sanitary sewer rehab are in that group. I did want to point out that the branding wayfinding program is finally picking up some steam now. Thanks to Logan and the engineering team, they've gotten the ball moving on that. And we have a new anticipated completion date of December 31st. Our multi-year projects, we have 2 additions to this list for the projects that are in design. The fiscal year 21-22 water lines and stormwater system A phase 3. Those are both beginning this year, and the others were already in design as of the end of the year. Our construction projects, this list should also look familiar. There's no new additions here from the last report that you saw. I did want to point out that the Britley decommissioning contract for construction is on the agenda tonight. Francis Haven and Farmington is scheduled for next month, and the fiscal year 19-20 water lines are either done or going to be done in the next couple days, and so that project will be closing out soon. Our equipment projects have a couple here that are going to be delayed for our COVID restrictions. Other than that, we have a couple equipment projects here that just need to get off the ground. The station alerting equipment is underway. We have that contract working out with Concord, and that's going to be implemented in the first half of this year. And for our vehicles, most of our vehicles are going to be delayed for that COVID restriction, as you see here. The three that are marked as active for fiscal year 20 and 21 are a total deputy vehicle that was ruined right at the end of June that we are replacing, the new Smil fire engine, which is on the agenda later tonight for the financing of that, and then the replacement of our leaf truck. That's such a big piece of equipment, it requires a little time to get that going. I have two vehicles highlighted on this list, the pump station maintenance vehicle and the Chevy Silverado. Those were delayed due to manufacturing shutdowns, but they have picked back up and should be finished in the next month or two. Our professional services project, the same list that we exited the year with. We do have two additions for this year, the ADA implementation and the Harrisburg retail recruitment study, and both of those are going to be held until January 1st. Other items going on in the finance department, we're already preparing for the audit. Audit field work is scheduled for September 8th and through 11th. And while it sounds like a lot of time before that date, there's a lot that we've got to pull together for that and have everything ready for the auditors when they come in on September 8th. So we're already working on closing out the fiscal year and getting things in order for the audit. I also wanted to mention that Executive Orders 124 and 142 related to our utility billing disallowed us from disconnecting customers over this time period due to COVID. And so we've been tracking the number of accounts that we would have disconnected if it weren't for these executive orders. And in March, we had 142 customers, April 84, May 225, and this most recent billing in June of 384. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that it's starting to be felt in our community, and these numbers are starting to stack up for us as well. So as we make our decisions going forward on payment plans, we'll have to keep this in mind that the numbers of people being affected in our town are starting to grow. And I'll welcome any questions that there may be.
Hey, Brian, Councilman Russo, a couple things. First of all, congratulations on your new job.
Thank you.
We're all behind you. It's a big job, so I hope you do well. And if you need anything, I'm sure all the council will be there for you. Second of all, what are we going to do with these Gold's Gyms memberships? I mean, you helped me out in the past. Now we're already into July. Has anybody talked to Gold's, or are they going to reopen, or are we just going to cancel the whole project, or what?
I don't know what Gold's plans are, but I know that we have not been able to get in touch with them at all. We've tried from a couple different angles to get to them. So we have not paid any memberships to Gold's for a while now, and we've refunded those to anybody who was participating in that program. So as of right now, we're just continuing to refund those month by month. But you're always welcome to pull yourself out of that program if you'd like. But if we don't hear anything from them soon this year, then I would propose that we end that relationship with them. The billing is really messy, and I'm not sure that there's that much benefit to it.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I like going up there, but you took care of me, I think, into May, maybe June, but you know, we just need to make sure we get our refunds. Other than that, you know, who knows when it's going to open.
Right. Will do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Okay.
All right. What else we got, Mr. Manager? We good? All right. I just have a couple things. The Sustainability Committee met this past week. And obviously with the businesses and the situation that they're in, we've decided to kind of change direction from our Greenleaf program that would encourage business to become more green. Obviously, they're not going to have that ability to do it yet, and most of them aren't open all the way. To kind of switching gears. So the first kind of course that we're going to take is we're actually going to incorporate this into a full-fledged committee with bylaws. Want something that is sustainable. So we're working on the bylaws right now and hope to get those to Rich in the next week or so for the goal of trying to go ahead and fully incorporate this board into a committee, a full-fledged recognized committee by the town by our next council meeting. So I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, kind of the direction that we're going to take now is start to focus on educating the residents on things that they can do to become more green in our community, as well as start our Greenleaf program as it associates with entire neighborhoods. So the more folks that are joining the cause from a green perspective, we'll start handing out the green leafs by neighborhood and work on that project as well. We did get a couple new committee members as a result of kind of pushing that out this past week. So we're excited to have 2 members on board. So as we transition into a full-fledged committee, we should have a full board with council just being ex officio members as opposed to sitting and driving this process. Next up, so on the 20th is the first Harrisburg Racial Equity Task Force, and I was quickly called out for inappropriately using equality versus equity. And if anybody wants that education, I'm happy to do that. But we're going to be called equity, not equality. But that is on the 20th, so you're welcome to join us. It'll be a Zoom session. If anybody in the audience would like to be participating in that, or at least listen in, I'm happy to forward that to you guys to listen to. It is a public meeting, but it will be a Zoom session for those that are actually on it. We've got a pretty good slate of folks that have signed up to be on that task force, so we're excited about that. That's pretty much all I've got, so I'll go to council for any comments.
I'll speak for them.
Go ahead, Councilman Ron.
Oh, thanks. Haynes, I just want to say thanks to Park and Rec. The video that was created for 4th of July, Jeff Williams should finish off more videos like that. He and Chief Brady were pretty hilarious there at the end. We got a good chuckle out of it. Also with Park and Rec, I did see that the shade apparatus went in place over at Stallings Park, over the good. And then I forwarded to everybody the NCDOT's revenue update that we received. And I would encourage you guys to go to page 13 to see what's been suspended, what changes are being made in personnel, and then what they're reducing. And with that, Haynes, they noted that they were immediately suspending reimbursement to schools for road improvements. Is there anything that does that apply to neighborhoods, or how does that, are we impacted by that, I guess?
Yeah, I think the biggest concern that we had related to that memo that you sent, and our staff got that as well. I'm glad you shared that with everyone. It's sort of a dire outlook from a funding perspective for NCDOT. But the traffic improvements at Hickory Ridge Elementary School, the new school being built out on Hickory Ridge Road, that was a big concern for us on whether or not the funding associated with that would be affected. But so far, there's not been any indication that that's the case. I know that they are quickly trying to get those improvements in place, but I will follow up with staff to make sure that we haven't been updated in any issue for those improvements. We also have a driveway improvement for Harrisburg Elementary School right off of Stallings Road that the town and NCDOT and the county were all working together on. So I'll follow up on those and report back if there are any issues with those.
The last thing they told us in that meeting was that road mowing started back up on June 1st. So that's why the roads they said it was suspended, and they didn't receive their funding for mowing until June 1. So they're playing catch up now. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yep.
Mayor?
Yep. Hang on one second, Rick. I just wanted to jump back on my spot. Demonstration permits. I know that we've talked about that. I know other towns do that, and I didn't know where exactly we were. I'll let Haynes I did have a conversation with Haynes, so this is not a surprise to him. So I'll let him give you an update on demonstration permits.
Yeah, so the town currently does not have anything in our ordinance related to protest petitions or demonstration permits or anything like that. So we've been working with law enforcement and our planning department to try to come up with thoughts and ideas about what that might look like. Of course, there are a bunch of examples out there from other communities. So it's something that, provided we get direction from council and it's okay to continue to move forward with, we will intend to bring a sample or a proposed ordinance to you guys in the near future.
Go ahead, Councilman Rick.
Good evening. First of all, Lee, I want to congratulate you on your new position as assistant town manager. It's a big job. We're expecting big things from you. If you need anything, just let us know. We appreciate your service to the town of Harrisburg. Second of all, Haynes, I got a couple questions for you. One, I forgot to tell you earlier, I got an email from a resident about kids playing in the fountain in Veterans Park. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, it was 100 degrees and they needed to cool off. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, we were made aware of that this morning as well. So we're going to work with Parks and Rec staff to see if there's any sort of signage or anything that needs to come up there. Unfortunately, that's sort of commonplace in fountains where you'll have rogue offenders who get in there and take a dip. So maybe when we open up the splash pad at Harrisburg Park, we'll give them an alternative to utilize moving forward. But yeah, thank you for letting us know about that, Rick. And I know I'm making light of it, but we were made aware, and we'll look at if there's any signage or anything that needs to be done out there to prevent that from happening.
Okay. Second of all is fire station number 2. We spoke earlier. I think that should be put up for sale. I think that we need to get an appraiser out there, and you and I have little differences on time frames. So I definitely think it should be before the first of the year, because we're looking at $200,000-$300,000 worth of property, maybe more. So I think once we get an appraisal on it, bring it back to us, and whatever's in there is going to have to be done wherever it has to go, so we can sell this building. We've had a few. Ron and I spoke. We had a few residents say, "What's going on there? What's going on there?" So it's something that I don't have an answer right now, so I'm bringing it to you.
Yeah, no, great. So if you do, and we've had a lot of folks reach out to us as well, asking what the intention of the town is for the old Station 2 site. So I want to make that clarification there, the old Station 2 on Rocky River Road. So ever since the fire department has been able to move into the new Station 2, that station has been used as a storage building for the town. Part of New Station 2 will include a storage building behind New Station 2. However, that storage building has not been constructed at this time because of the water tank construction that's going on behind New Station 2. So as soon as the water tank is able to be complete or is completed, we will be able to understand where we will put that storage facility there on that site. So I know the fire department's using it as a storage building, but most of the square footage inside Fire Station 2 is being used by the Parks and Recreation Department right now. So when we had to close down Harrisburg Park for the construction project out there, we lost several storage buildings. And so a lot of the things that we would keep in storage out there had been moved to Fire Station 2 while the park project was going on. So as soon as the park project is complete and the water tank is complete and a new storage facility is opened up there behind Station 2, we will be able to move all of that stuff out of the old Station 2 and get that thing listed. I'm with you. I want to get it on the market and get it sold as quickly as possible. But right now, it's really a facility that doesn't cost us anything, to own, because we own it. And we wanted to avoid spending several $1,000s a month going out and renting storage facilities at this time. So I know when the public drives by, they don't see it being used and probably do wonder what is going on out there. But you're welcome to communicate to them that we're just temporarily storing things in it until New Station 2 gets fully wrapped up, Harrisburg Park gets fully wrapped up, and then you're right, we will get it appraised and get it listed for sale as quickly as we can.
Okay, just keep in mind, with no disrespect to you, that's an expensive storage building we're sitting on.
Yeah, well, the sale price of it won't change too much between today and when we sell it in 6 months or so. So I just again wanted to avoid, if council wants to sell it, we can get it on the market and list it, but we need to make sure that we're okay spending several $1,000s a month on storage facility rental expenses.
Thank you very much.
We'll take whatever direction the council has.
Does anybody want to offer a direction, or do we just continue down this path?
I would direct that we sit out for a while.
I'm saying continue down the path, but what I'm saying is let's not drag this into next year. It's more important than that. So let's find someplace for the park and rec stuff and for the fire truck and get it out of there, because January 2021 is unacceptable to me. So,
Well, we're storing a lot at Jackson Park right now. Is there additional room there, or is that out of question?
I talked to Chief Dunn today after my conversation with Councilman Russo on that to see what space we had. And there's not enough space out at Jackson Park for us to move what's being stored from the fire department out to that facility right now.
well, I'm good. Like I said, I'm good with where it's at. I'm not good with where it's at for a long period of time. So if that makes any sense.
All right, I'm on mute. Can we go ahead and work on the appraisal just to get an idea what its value is so we can make a financial decision?
Yeah, we can absolutely begin that process.
Is that amenable to council? I don't want to put words in y'all's mouth.
That's fine with me. You need a motion, Mayor?
Yeah, I'll take a motion and we'll formalize it.
A motion to get an appraisal on old station number 2.
Got a motion on the floor?
Smith, second.
Properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. Going to go down the list. Councilman Ron,
Aye.
Councilman Rodney,
Aye.
Councilman Ian,
Aye.
Councilman Rick,
Aye.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you for that. I'll go back to other council members, or Rick, if you're not finished, you can continue and then we'll move to the next council member.
I'm done. Thank you very much, Haynes. I appreciate it.
Any other council wishing to address?
And Mayor, I'd like to give a shout out to a nonprofit leadership organization of young people that are creating the next generation of leaders within our community. The framework for future today gave bags out to our first responders that had N95 masks along with gloves in them. These young people are high school students that engage with civil, business, and community leaders within the area. And I'd just like to give them a thank you for putting that all together. Secondly, I'd like to talk about Harrisburg Business Alliance. They have opened back up for business. We are going to use a Zoom platform like many others within the community are doing, waiting on this COVID situation to be over, and look forward to some of the advertisements coming out and some of the speakers that we'll have on Thursday mornings for HBA, please.
Hey, Troy, is HBA tracking lost business as far as any business that we're losing during this?
Yes, we are. And at this point, none of the membership has been lost, but we have been talking with people within the community that some of the businesses that have shut down will not be reopening. And we will get a list and report back to council on that, Mr. Smith.
Thanks.
Any other comments from council?
Hey, Mayor, I just have a few things.
Okay.
First, congratulate Haynes, and I'm 100% positive Tahisha had a lot of work to do on the healthiest employers in the region. I think that's a good milestone, especially since we went up in the category this year with lots of employers, so we're competing with some strong folks. Also like to congratulate Brian for his new position. Congratulations. I'm sure you'll do great. I'll echo what Rick said. If you guys need anything from us, let us know. And then the last thing is I attended what was, I guess, the kickoff meeting for the UDO update, just kind of giving a report to council here. A lot of good discussion. We just generally talked about kind of what schedule was going to be, how the reviews were going to work, and things like that. I did ask them to align with our HALOP. Are we changing the oil on the UDO, or are we rebuilding the transmission? Just to kind of get an idea of how much work we're doing on this thing. And his comment was, let me see here. We're polishing it and changing the oil. So that's kind of how it stands now. If this council wishes to make further policy direction for any changes to the UDO, that will need to come from us. Just wanted everybody to be aware that this process has started, and of course public will be involved, be plenty of public comment sessions. But want everybody to know that if policy directions need to be made, it's going to need to come from us, and sooner rather than later. That's all I had.
Thank you, Ian. Anyone else wishing to address council? All right, and hearing none, we'll continue down the agenda. We're going to move to consideration of Sheriff's Department contract renewal.
All right, Mayor and Council, I'll take this over. I will be updating and loading a PowerPoint presentation here. Hopefully everybody will be able to see that momentarily. All right, for consideration for us tonight is an updated contract with the Cabarrus County Sheriff's Department for law enforcement services. So as we know, we contract with the Sheriff's Department to provide an additional level or expanded service beyond the service level that we would receive from the Sheriff's Department if we were in an unincorporated area of the county. So we've operated under this annual contract for many years, very successfully. And this contract typically just automatically renews each year unless there's staffing or other sort of changes made to the contract. So during this past budget year, the county manager's office reached out to me to discuss proposed changes that they wanted to implement for the upcoming budget year. They also wanted to talk with us about whether or not we wanted to add any additional officers to the number that we currently provide. So want to make sure that I reiterate that these changes were not by the request of Sheriff Shaw and the Sheriff's Department. They came directly from the county manager's office, but want to thank Sheriff Shaw and even the county manager's office for working with us and hearing us out for some of the concerns that we had for their proposed changes to this contract. We were able to cordially negotiate back and forth some changes to that, and I want to walk through what those changes were here tonight. But as we move forward with the development of our FY21 budget, the budget that just began in July 1 of this year, we decided as a town, collectively, the council agreed to add 2 new positions to that contract to increase additional service delivery within the community. Specifically, we added a nighttime sergeant to provide management oversight to our officers that worked in the evening. And we also added an investigator position to deal with the increased caseload amount of our current investigators. So to kind of summarize our current contract that we have, well, I'll say current, to summarize the contract that we had for last year, our FY20 contract, we had a total of 15 deputies that were assigned to the town, and 13 of those deputies' salaries and benefits and all expenses associated with them were paid for by the town. The county paid for 2 of those positions. The thought process behind that is those 2 county paid positions are able to float around and respond to calls in areas that are immediately outside of Harrisburg. If anyone has ever seen a town limits map of the town of Harrisburg, we look like a piece of Swiss cheese and have several pockets and holes that are unincorporated areas surrounded by areas that are incorporated in the town. So by having those 2 county paid officers, they are able to respond and help and assist, from both a financially and call perspective to provide service in those areas. But these 15 officers' main responsibilities are to provide law enforcement services to the town. One of the additional benefits the town receives via this contract is that deputies assigned outside of Harrisburg are also available to assist our deputies in the event that a call or multiple calls come in at the same time and our personnel are limited in those instances. We have the support and help of other county deputies that are outside of those 15 total that we pay for. So the town pays the county quarterly for the cost of these 13 deputies. We pay them at the 65th percentile for the salaries of each of those positions assigned to the town. So the county, under their pay scale for their employees, they have variations of percentiles for each employment classification. And we are charged based on how many of those officers, say deputies, all the way up to sergeants and lieutenants. We pay the 65th percentile currently for salaries for each of those positions. Currently, the town also purchases all of the vehicles and equipment associated with the law enforcement contract. So we own and insure and help maintain those throughout the life of those vehicles. Moving forward, we also currently under the contract, if there is a vacancy, say a deputy were to leave or a position comes vacant, the town currently pays for the costs associated with that vacant position until the 46th day. So at which time, 46 days and beyond, the town is no longer billed for that position. So we do have to cover the expenses of a vacant position for an extended period of time. But fortunately, the Sheriff's Department has been working really well to ensure that our vacancies do not last for an extended period of time. Also, the contract calls for any changes in that contract to require a 6-month notice from both parties. And that's something pretty standard that's been in the contract for many years. And again, the contract renews annually unless there are changes. So that's just a real high level. The contract that we have is really quite simple for the law enforcement services. It's only about a 4-page document, but it's been also very effective for us for many, many years. So when the county first reached out to us to discuss their proposed changes, I want to present to you what those main 5 items were. And then I'll talk to you about what we were able to negotiate and what is in the final contract. So one of the first things that they looked to add was an administrative fee. The intent of this was to recover what they believe are administrative costs associated with managing and administering the contract with the town. And they proposed this to be 10% of our total personnel costs. For us, that was roughly $140,000 a year. A really big expense for us to take on from one year to the next. They also wanted the town to begin to pay for those 2 deputy positions that they currently pay for. So I mentioned earlier, we had 15 total deputies, 13 paid by the town, 2 paid by the county. They wanted to phase in the expense associated with those 2 positions to the town so that in 2 years, the town would be paying 100% of the costs associated with those 2 deputy positions. Once we reach that full payment, that would be an increased cost to the town of more than $130,000 annually. The third change is that the county wants to purchase and maintain all the vehicles and equipment and require that those vehicles be replaced every 4 years. Currently, the town controls the replacement of these vehicles. We control ownership of the vehicles. We usually replace them about every 6 or 7 years. So you can imagine an escalated replacement timeline from 6 to 7 years to 4 years would be an increase in our capital expenses associated with vehicles and equipment related to the contract. A positive improvement that they recommended was that if a vacancy occurred, that the town would pay for the vacant position only after the 31st day. So a little bit of a shortened timeline there on which we would be responsible for that vacant position. And also, lastly, the biggest improvement was the extension of the contract for a 4-year period with 1-year renewals beyond that point. So we would have the same 6-month notice of change requirement, but it would be a 4-year contract rather than a year-to-year contract. So as you can see, 5 major changes. 3 of these changes represent significant cost expenses, additional cost expenses to the town. 2 of them although are either favorable or do not have any real impact to us moving forward, and those are the bottom 2 items there. So through a month-long negotiation and back and forth with the county manager's office and with assistance from Sheriff Shaw, we were able to get these final changes negotiated into the contract. So the administrative fee will remain in the contract, but that amount has been reduced from roughly $140,000 to a maximum of $75,000 annually. And again, the reference to that is that helps them cover any fees and expenses associated with our contract from an HR, recruitment, IT, from all of those perspectives. They want to try to recapture some of those costs, but we were able to negotiate that down fairly significantly. The county will also continue to pay for the cost of those 2 county-provided deputies. So the phased-in, the phased-in expense transitioning from the county to the town has gone away completely. So they've removed that altogether. Again, that saves the town roughly $130,000 annually for those 2 positions. We were also able to negotiate the costs associated with what we pay per position down. So again, I mentioned earlier that we pay at the 65th percentile for salaries for each of the positions, and we were able to decrease that down to the 50th percentile for each of those positions, and that lowers the total amount spent on personnel by roughly $60,000 a year. So we were able to, and what part of the conversations and negotiations for us, at least from my perspective, was to limit the cost impact to us for these new changes to the contract. I didn't want anything to affect the town negatively from a financial perspective, but at the same time, I didn't want to affect the service delivery as well. So even though they included the administrative fee of $75,000, some of that or most of that was offset by this change in percentile for the salaries of the positions. One of the things that we had hoped to maintain as well was ownership of the vehicles and equipment, but this was a point from the county that they would not agree to negotiate on. So the new contract will allow the county to purchase and maintain the vehicles and equipment moving forward, but the replacement cycle of those vehicles and equipment will be determined by the town. So we eliminated that 4-year cycle, and we will be able to determine when those vehicles are replaced. Another item too specific to this, and it's not mentioned in the PowerPoint presentation, but under their original proposal is that the county would maintain those vehicle ownership even after they replaced it. And so from my perspective, if we were out reimbursing them for the costs associated with those vehicles, ownership should transition to us when the sheriff's department is done with the useful life of them. And so that's been placed in the contract as well. So not only will we get to determine the replacement cycle of the vehicles, but the county will then donate those vehicles and they will become property of the town when the useful life of the deputies is expired. So what that allows us to do is reassign the vehicles to other departments within the town, or it allows us to surplus them and keep the revenues associated with the sale of those vehicles. And again, I mentioned earlier, the town has agreed to or has requested from the sheriff's department to provide 2 new positions for the upcoming budget. So that's an increased cost of just under $180,000 associated with those positions, as well as another $120,000 for new vehicles and equipment for them. So, but that is something that we were able to approve. So these final changes that have been negotiated in the contract represent about a $250,000 savings over what was originally proposed from the county. So again, it was a hard fought negotiation back and forth, but we were able to reach terms that we feel comfortable with. I'm not going to say that the town is pleased with all of these changes that have been presented to us in the contract, but based on our options for law enforcement coverage in the town, this still represents our most cost-effective and best solution for us moving forward. So how does that compare to what we budgeted for our new budget year? So you can see there that we budgeted just over $1.2 million for contract expenses. The proposed contract comes in just under what was budgeted. So we come in about $21,000 under. However, because the county will now be purchasing the vehicles, we'll have to come back to council in future council meetings and ask for a budget amendment to move the expenses associated with those vehicles from our capital outlay into the contract service line item, because again, it'll come as a billed item from the county. It won't be an expense that we will incur. But there's a little chart down below that just provides a little overview. So you can see the personnel costs from last year to this year. There's about a $65,000 change in that, but that's with the 2 new positions that we added. So we added $140,000 in new expenses of positions, but because we went from the 65th percentile down to the 50th percentile, it allowed us to not have that full impact of the expenses of those positions on that particular line item. And then you do see the new $75,000 administrative fee, and that's capped at a maximum. So total change from last year is about $140,000. But again, we feel like this is the best possible negotiated contract that we could get. And the county basically told me that this was it, that there would not consider or be open to any other conversations related to this particular contract, but would take feedback from you guys. So this is in your packet tonight for consideration to approve. In addition, I would like to get just confirmation that the 2 new positions that are budgeted for in FY21, that the county can continue to move forward and onboard those positions as quickly as possible. So I'll let you vote on the contract first, and then we'll discuss or get confirmation about those 2 new positions when we're done with that.
Can we go to questions first? Or can we go to questions first just on what we just saw?
Absolutely.
I'm going to go first if you guys don't mind. So today, our county tax rate has a baked-in police number, correct? Do we know what that equates to for the 17,000 people that live in the town of Harrisburg?
I do not, but I can get that information.
So the reason why I say that is essentially we get to pay twice, right? Because the county's not giving us money back because they're not using it to use for police services. They're using it somewhere else. And we're turning around and paying $1.2 million back to the county in addition to our county tax rate. So we're paying twice to some degree. So for them to push back and tell you that this is the end, it just feels like we're getting double dipped and they're making money on us. That's just my opinion.
I don't disagree that the $75,000 administrative fee is probably excessive compared to their actual expenses that they incur to operate this. So from a personnel cost, I understand that we want to have additional service here, and that's what we're paying them to do. So that seems reasonable in nature to me. But yes, the administrative fee does seem a bit excessive.
Haynes, I think you did a good job negotiating it down, like we all talked in council budget meetings. If it wasn't for the citizens, I wouldn't want any of them, because I think we see a lot of police officers right now. I think it's better now than it's been in a lot of years since I lived here for 30, probably the last 10 years. And I don't know what they're doing, where they've been, but they're out. You see them. And I don't want to say we don't need more, but it's terrible when the county hangs that over your head. We all know who it is. And if it wasn't to protect myself, my colleagues, and the citizens of Harrisburg, I would have said no, because I agree with Steve 100%. I think we're paying twice, but at least we get the cars back, and they can't tell us when to buy new ones. That's big, but I still don't think it's right. I think we're getting the raw end of the deal, but it's better than nothing.
Haynes, I did have a question. I know when reading through the packet, it said this agreement was for 3 years, not knowing what this police study shows. And I know you said in there that this contract could be broken with a 6-month notice. Is there any penalties if you break the contract?
There are no financial penalties for breaking the contract. So we just have to notify the sheriff's department, give them that 6-month notice. Of course, we've had conversations together about, what that looks like when and if the town ever decides to make that move. And he's been very accommodating from that standpoint. So yeah, there are no financial penalties. Just have to give them 6 months notice.
Well, you can add me to the list. I'm not a fan of fees, and certainly not a fan of this fee. I mean, airlines do it to us. Most businesses do it. It's one way to show one price, but it's another way to make up the difference. And I understand the sheriff's not behind it either, but I don't know what our other options are at this time.
Any other questions?
Haynes,
before we go to vote? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Mayor. So I believe there were 2 or 3 other municipalities as part of these negotiations. Is that correct?
Yeah, the county didn't just update these contract changes with Harrisburg. They also updated them with Mount Pleasant and Midland, which are the other 2 that contract with the county for additional law enforcement services. But those individual communities only contract for 1 or 2 or 3 additional deputies, not 15 or 17. So they were able to see much less impact associated with the administrative fee. For instance, in speaking with the Midland town manager, their cost difference from last year to this year, it only increased their cost by $1,000. So it was not significant for them versus us, where we see, basically a $75,000 dollar expense increase. So much more dramatically affecting us than it is Mount Pleasant and Midland. But at the same time, Harrisburg was able to, again, negotiate down over $250,000 in savings compared to the original proposal that was presented to us. And that was not an easy task and was quite a conversation back and forth to get to where we're at with this final proposal.
Okay, well, I'll echo what the others are saying, because I don't particularly like feeling like we're being bullied, which is what it feels like, especially with the great relationship we've had with Shaw. And I appreciate you negotiating this down, but again, I do not like that feeling of being bullied. And at least it's locked in for 4 years, and we can cancel if the feasibility study comes back up. That says we should start working on our own department, and then we can reassess.
Any more comments, or I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract?
Haynes, this is Rodney. When we spoke today, I want to be sure that other council members understand that even though it does say a $70,000 fee and that it is a 3-year contract, that they can come back for fiscal year 22, and that could be an $80,000 or a $90,000 fee.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately the position that we're in. We rely heavily, this is our only option at this point, right? So, and I think that the county kind of knows that. So I would not commit that they would not come back in the future and ask us for an increase on that admin fee. But I think we're in a strong position and would have a strong argument that the current contract would keep them to that for at least the next 3 years. But would not be willing.
So is it 3? Is it 3 or 4? It looked like your previous, I think it's 4.
It's a 4-year contract. I'm thinking beyond FY21, but yeah, it's an extension.
Okay, all right.
Any more questions or a motion?
Mayor, I motion to approve.
We got a motion on the floor.
Second.
Properly seconded by Councilman Devin. All in favor, say aye. I'll go down the list. Councilman Ron.
Aye.
Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. And you had another follow-up to that?
Yeah, just want, obviously, with the impacts of COVID-19 on our FY21 budget, the budget that we just entered in July 1, we've halted a lot of new expenses, and we're basically down to core operations at the moment. But part of FY21 was the approval of the 2 additional positions via the sheriff's contract. So I believe that there was discussion during the budget workshops that these 2 positions would be considered essential to go ahead and onboard and get loaded up for us. So just seeking confirmation from council this evening that the sheriff's department is able to move forward with onboarding those 2 new positions and making the vehicle purchases as quickly as they are able to.
You need a motion, Mayor?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that and make it formalized. Yes, let's go ahead and do that, Rick.
Motion to approve both officers and vehicles as soon as possible.
I will second that. Councilman Felber.
Got a motion on the floor properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. I'll go down the list. Councilman Ron.
Aye.
Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian. Councilman Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. Anything else on that? All right, we're going to move to discussion the town's public hearing and TIA process as a result of COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, Mayor and Council, I will take this one over again. So obviously with the impacts of COVID-19 to how we hold public meetings has changed and altered everything that we've done really. And so as we've gone on now for several months with these changes, the town's made obviously multiple attempts to ensure that the public always has the opportunity to attend and have multiple access points to these meetings. But at the same time, a lot of our planning processes that require those public hearings have been halted. And so what we have is ever since the April meeting, we have been unable to sort of resume and continue forward the processes on the planning side with these applications. And this is both commercial applications for new businesses wanting to come to town, as well as residential development that we continue to see interest for. So we attempted to do a virtual meeting for a public hearing in April. We had some challenges associated with that. Since that time, there's been some additional state and school of government guidance to the town on how communities can continue to move forward with these planning processes at the time. So what we're coming to tonight is just to have a discussion and get direction from council on how we make sure business moves forward of the town. And so we want to make sure that we're being respectful to the public as well as the applicant and the property owner, and giving them adequate time and access and due process throughout this. What we don't want to have happen is that we pause some of these projects moving forward, and then all of a sudden when we do return to more normal in-person meetings, then you may have 6 or 8 or 10 potential new development projects. And that would be a lot for not only staff to work through, but as well as council and the public to just kind of consider all of those things at one time. So what we would like to do is try to return as close to normal as possible, even though we are not meeting in person. So a lot of challenges associated with that, but we feel like we've been able to implement some processes and procedures to help overcome those. But one of the biggest challenges is that the lack of these in-person meetings has made our typical process of receiving public feedback much more challenging. So the person doesn't have an opportunity to come and show up in person and participate during a public hearing. But one of the things that we've done, or several of the things that we've done since the in-person meetings have halted, is that we have allowed for submittal of feedback from the public via email, voicemail, and then they have both live chat and live feedback opportunities via the phone or internet during the actual meeting. So we're actually providing more opportunities and avenues for communication to us during these times, and it's become much more flexible for individuals. There's also a lack of clear guidance from the state and town ordinances for this. So state laws and town ordinances weren't written really to accommodate scenarios where in-person meetings don't occur. So both the state and the town have had to adapt and change and evolve with our approaches to how we continue this. And unfortunately, it doesn't appear that we will be able to return to in-person meetings in the near future. And if we do return to in-person meetings, there are likely to be caps on the number of folks who can be in attendance due to social distancing requirements and whatnot. So we want to, again, prepare for the long haul with this, because we don't know when quote unquote normal will return. But at the same time, again, we want to be accountable to both the property and business owners who want to develop and ensure that they have a timely processing of their application. So two different things that we're seeking recommendations and approvals from for council. And first of those is public hearings. So public hearings are required anytime there's a rezoning or conditional rezoning or change to the ordinance, the zoning ordinance of the town. So what we would propose is that the hearings would continue to be held immediately following the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board. So nothing there. We will continue to offer the multiple options for providing feedback in these virtual meetings, such as voicemail, email, and live during the meeting. But where we start to see changes is in those bottom 3 bullet points. So typically in the past, the council would hold the public hearing, close the public hearing, and go right to a vote by the council. What we would propose to do is that the council hold the public hearing, but they do not vote on it after they close it. They wait until the following month's council meeting to give additional time for both the public and the town to get feedback from staff, from the applicant. It eliminates and prevents the pressure of having to make a quick decision or process a lot of information in a very short period of time. And certainly we want to make sure that the council has a full understanding of the project and the application in front of them. So gives that extra month of time for staff to provide feedback to the both the public and to the town council to get clarifications from the applicant. Obviously, there's even time for minor changes. You know, we have minor changes that happen all of the time in our public hearings where council asks the applicant to make amendments or changes or adjustments or consider this or consider that. It gives the council additional time to think those things through, ask those of the applicant, and it gives the applicant time to process it and understand the impact of what those changes are on their project. So giving that additional time is helpful for everyone. It's helpful for the public, the applicant, and the town council in this process. So the second monthly meeting that would occur after the public hearing is closed, again, staff can provide feedback. We would likely provide answers to questions that are posed by the public. Right now, it can be very challenging when a member of the public comes up and asks a question of staff. It may not be something that is immediately known or we immediately have access to that information. So we would be able to collect these questions, come back the following month and provide that answer or that feedback to the public during that time. Again, the council would have opportunity to ask the applicant and staff any questions that they had, and upon completion of that discussion, the council would then vote on the item. So you're really taking all the processes that would occur in one meeting, you're stretching them out over 2 meetings, and you're providing, again, that additional opportunity for each party. So is there any questions on that from the council on that recommendation for that process specific to public hearings? All right, hearing none, and obviously you'll have time to ask at the very end as well. So the second impact that we've had related to our sort of standard or normal planning process is the impacts to our traffic impact analysis, so or a TIA. We refer to TIAs very often. So a lot of the new development that occurs both commercially and residential requires traffic impact analysis to be done. What that impact analysis does is it looks at the expected traffic impact of that particular development to determine what sort of necessary traffic improvements will be required of the development. So from a town standpoint, we certainly want to make sure that any new development that comes along is able to accommodate the traffic that it would generate. And so we do this with real-time traffic studies that collect data on both past data that may be existing, growth factors that take place, directional flow of the data that's available, and any approved development that's yet to be completed. So take all of that and we assess what those improvements could be or should be. And then we take that data currently in our planning and engineering staff, sit down with representatives from NCDOT. We also have a third-party traffic engineer come and sit in on those conversations. And those 3 entities come up and approve what any necessary traffic improvements may be triggered by that particular project. So one of the impacts that we have had to TIAs right now, and we've actually paused TIAs since March, is that we always require the TIAs be done when school is in session. And so the reason we do that is we want to make sure that we're best capturing morning and evening peak flow of that particular road or intersection, with the expectation that school is not likely to operate in a manner that's anywhere close to normal in the upcoming year. TIAs are going to have to be adjusted to rely on past data that we have. So there is a lot of existing data. Some of it's not all that old because of other TIAs and traffic studies that have been done throughout town. So we rely on past data. We take an actual real-time traffic analysis of directional flow. So which direction are people turning? Which direction are people going? So you don't rely necessarily on the count as much as you do understanding the directional flow of that traffic. You also, of course, look at approved development that's yet to be completed. But the biggest thing that we would rely on is growth factors. So because we don't get the opportunity to have a real live traffic count out there as part of our process because school is not in play, we would rely on growth factors. Typically, the towns use around a 2% growth factor year to year to affect traffic and understand the impacts to it on the traffic side of things. So that's the recommendation from staff at this time. It's not all that different than what we currently do. We would still require the developments to have a TIA done. It would still take in real-time data, but we would just not rely on it being done during school operations or when school's in normal session, because even if school does return, again, it's unlikely that it will return to a normal status. So just sort of shifting the focus to where we don't rely so much on real-time counts, but we rely on past data, directional traffic flow, and growth factors to help determine those improvements. Also, talking with our planning and engineering staff, we would make sure that if there was an improvement that was sort of on the fringe of being required, but maybe the data didn't suggest that it was a requirement related to the TIA, we would make sure that staff would make those improvements part of the improvement recommendations, or at least communicate that to the town council that there were other improvements that may not have been triggered by the TIA, but could have been possible. So we'll make sure that we communicate that very effectively and again, get the best possible results that we can out of these new developments. So what we're seeking tonight is just a direction from council or questions or further discussion if you want to see amendments or changes to this. But we have to find an opportunity for us to continue business moving forward, or we're going to see some really negative impacts in the long term. So there are no changes to the ordinances required to this. This particular process would meet our ordinance, but again, a motion of support would give the staff the direction we need to move forward. I'll turn it over to any questions.
Haynes, I have a couple questions. One, this year was going to be a turning point, I guess you might say, for this area because the schools redistricting was coming into place. So even if we looked at past counts, we're not going to have that data. And we won't certainly understand the flow of that traffic based on the new elementary school that either decreased or increased to Harrisburg Elementary. And then the other side of that is, if we get it wrong, who has to pay for it? Does the town have to step up and make the adjustments? And then my last point or question would be, what are other towns doing? I mean, I would like to get more information from other cities and how they're adjusting to this right now. Thank you.
So very, very good questions. And I've got Sushil and Rob keyed up to step in and answer any questions or correct me if I don't provide accurate information. But on your first question, so I think that a TIA will still be required. So to your point about not understanding the direction of movement that these new schools would generate, especially due to redistricting, I think the TIAs will capture that. They will capture, what percentage turn left or turn right, or what percentage come from one direction or the other. And so you'll be able to use those percentages for those particular traffic movements to understand, is a left turn lane required, or a right turn lane, or a decel lane, or some of those traffic improvements that you see. I think that we will have a good understanding of what those impacts are. And of course, with the new school, Hickory Ridge Elementary School, they've already done a TIA to understand at real time with the number of students that they expected at that that school what those improvements would be. And so they've obviously got the traffic circle going in out there, but we can actually rely on that TIA data from the Hickory Ridge Elementary School to help us understand the traffic needs that will be out there in that area if we see development come forward. So I'm not so much concerned about understanding the impact of that, because I think that we will get that data from the TIA. And as far as what others communities are doing, I think we've made this statement sort of repeatedly to you guys, so I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Harrisburg's requirements are significantly more stringent and higher than our neighboring communities. So from a TIA standpoint, the same application would apply. And I feel like we've shown and proven over the last several years that we're going to ask and make sure we get every traffic improvement that we can. But I'll certainly turn it over to Sushil or Rob if they want to add or maybe correct me if anything on that.
But who covers it if we don't get it right?
Same thing for now, right? It's the same situation now as if a development occurs and we didn't have the right traffic improvement in there, then it would fall on either NCDOT or the town, depending upon who owns the road.
We've not been in this situation before.
Do what?
We've not been in this situation before. So we don't know if we get it right or get it wrong.
Oh yeah,
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you're saying
examples of development that we've approved where we got it wrong on the traffic side.
So there has been that we've gotten it wrong?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. There have been developments that we have approved under previous staff that did not necessarily have the traffic improvements that should have occurred in them take place. Yes.
And what was the cost of the town?
Well, we have not made those improvements. The town has not ever come back and made, any sort of additional turn lanes or anything like that. It's just an inefficiently operating traffic flow at the moment.
That's what I said. I mean, we've not been through this before. We don't have, you're saying it exists, but we've not fixed it. So I want to know the possible exposure that we would be looking at if we get it wrong.
Same, and my answer to that is pretty simple. It's the same as it would be under a normal circumstance. If we miss something and don't account for it in a TIA, once the developer has built out and done and made their traffic improvements, we can't go back and require them to make any additional ones. So the threat or the risk is not any different in this recommendation than it would have been previously.
And Haynes, let me chime in just on a couple things that I think are important for council to consider when we're working through this. And I'll answer your question there too, Ron, as far as who's responsible. And I think you hit it, Haynes, but ultimately whoever owns the road, right? I mean, if we do a TIA and we find out year 5 or 6 that the traffic's much worse than it was, if it's state route, they're going to be responsible for it. If it's a town road, it's going to be us. I think, obviously I've only been here 3 years, but I think the biggest glaring example of where we missed it was the NC Rail project, right? I mean, you look at veterans in Hickory Ridge and probably our biggest traffic issue to date. Excuse me. And I think, whatever went into the assumptions on that project and making that project work, probably didn't get it right. And the town and DOT have looked at pricing that out to the tune of $6 million. So I think it is important that we understand the assumptions going into a TIA, so that when we come up with improvements, we all are comfortable that those improvements are indeed what the town needs. And as far as, not having accounts done during school, that's not atypical to what I've done in consulting or at other towns. But you do have to account for it somehow. And the way I've recommended we implement this with the consulting engineer is to actually use the schools as a traffic generator. So rather than trying to capture their count, we would generate it mathematically. We have processes and formulas to do that based on student counts and locations and square footages and all that good stuff, because we're just not going to get good counts on that. And the way we do it currently isn't exactly perfect either. I mean, if you think about the assumptions that go into generating the traffic now, we remove the schools as a traffic generator, but we only count for a week, sometimes for, a shorter period of time. And you are assuming that that traffic is reflective of a multi-year period, which it may or may not be. So then we adjust those numbers to account for that, because we have an uncertainty in counting that single day or that single week. We then go back and do seasonal adjustment factors. If it was done in the spring, it's adjusted different than it was done in the winter. We do time of day adjustment factors. We do holiday and you name it. There's about 12 adjustment factors that go into the traffic generation formula. And all of those account for those uncertainties. So I think the key here is, if we're going to do a TIA and we know traffic is different than what we're planning for it to be 3 or 4 years down the road, we have to have all those factors in place that account for the uncertainty. So the way I would propose we account for school uncertainty is actually generate the traffic and add it in. So if you think of like Publix as a good example, when we did the TIA for Shea Homes, we added all 100% of Publix traffic in as an artificial number that we generated, because they're not fully built out yet, but we didn't want to account for them not being built out. So we took the current counts and then we added everything that wasn't built out and assumed it was. We just made those adjustments mathematically and add them into the formula and account for it that way. That's what I would do here with the schools. And there is a complicated process for balancing traffic and knowing where it comes to and from. And but we are going to have to go to 2019 data from a volume standpoint and adjust that up with all of these factors, add in schools, add in unbuilt developments. And then the real critical part, which was part 2 of my long-winded explanation here, is it ultimately comes down to what we get built and what the mitigating factor is. So if we're looking at these developments and we're at a signal, and right now you've been in the situation where somebody says, well, it's almost gone from a B to a C, but not quite. We're 1 second of delay from getting there, so we technically haven't triggered it. That would become obviously something we would push it over to. If you're close to an improvement, from a staff standpoint, I would recommend the developer and council decide to go forward with that improvement, because there's so much uncertainty that the chance of it pushing slightly over is as good as it would be pulling slightly back, and you're going to be erring on the side of caution when you come to those improvements. Where I don't think it really matters is, if you're on 49 and you already have a 5-lane road and you're at capacity, you're not going to an interstate, right? We're not going to a limited access 7-lane highway or anything like that. So really, when it comes to the final recommendations of the report, if I'm comfortable with the assumptions that we've made and the growth factors, and then we get to the improvement part, my plan would be to just recommend the most conservative recommendation we can. So if there's an improvement that can be made, they're just going to have to make it. And anybody developing in this atmosphere right now is just going to have to understand that that's part of the process.
So Rob, this is Rodney. I mean, I look at Stalin's here at Harrisburg Elementary, and many of parents take their kids to that school instead of allowing them to ride the school bus. Many a times you can watch those school buses coming out and they be empty. So if you're doing, let's say you're saying there are 500 students go to that school, are you assuming when you're doing, adding in these school figures, are you assuming that the 500, that only 100 parents are going to take their kids to school? I mean, can we make that kind of decision going forward with COVID and how things are going to be?
We would ask that specific school to provide us ridership information if you're going to do that. So we'd take, you know, like Harrisburg Elementary, for example. We know what their ridership was in 2019. We would take that and project it to what their new enrollment is, and then we would grow that in addition to that. So remember, we're not planning this for 2020. We're planning this for 2030, 2040. So we would take those numbers, but then still grow the base traffic behind it in addition to that.
But we still don't know how those parents are truly going to react in taking their kids, because it could be nobody's going to be on the bus going forward, and it's all going to be individual cars.
That's about what it is now.
Right. Right. Okay.
And we would assume that's how it's going to stay. We wouldn't assume a bunch of kids are going to start riding the bus that don't ride now. And the vast majority of elementary students, they're dropped off. They're car riders.
So when you take those statistics that, let's say we know now you don't do the traffic study in the summer. So you have a developer working on whatever. How are you going to go about adding in those school figures from the summer, since there's really no basis for the summer? How much is that being increased for the summer months?
Could you repeat it? I got a little sideways on it.
Sure. So you say you're going to go back and look at previous data, but we know there's not previous data for summer months, June, July, August. So how will, if there's going to be a traffic study done with the developer because something's coming forward, how would you add that particular statistics for school during June, July, and August?
It'd be 100% artificial trips. So what we would take for a school, let's say, you know, something's going on Hickory Ridge. We may go to Hickory Ridge Elementary and we do a count during the summer. And then we're going to assume 0 of those cars are for the schools, because there 0 of them are. And we're going to then take the traffic trip generation model of ITE formula that basically tells us how many trips go to those schools, and compare that to what the school enrollment is, make sure we're all comfortable with the amount of trips going to that school, and then we're going to basically artificially add those on top of the actual counts that we got to inflate those numbers to account for the school. If that makes any sense. If not, I'll try to explain it better.
Is there any type of examples or anything that will help us see this a little clearer, where we did it, where we did an actual traffic count, and then what you would have produced had you not done the traffic count and done these artificial figures based on the flow?
Yeah, I think the most recent one that we did that you could look at for something like that. Now, again, it's not a school, it's commercial development, but the Shea Holmes TIA took into account Publix being 100% built out. So everything except for the grocery store is an artificial number in that TIA, as well as the other developments that we approved at the time. So we added Harmony in, let's say, as an artificial number into Shea Holmes as well. So all of these TIAs have some artificial number in it. The only one we've never done in the town of Harrisburg, now I've done this and it's common industry-wide, is to add school as an artificial number. Our ordinance says do the counts while school is in. Sorry, I had something pop up here on the message board. So the schools being added in would be different from our ordinance, but it wouldn't be something that I would be uncomfortable with from an engineering standpoint. But I'm not the person approving developments and TIAs at the end of the day. So it's something that council has to be comfortable with, that captures everything that you're looking for in there. And again, I think I'd want to focus back from a council standpoint to the improvements associated with it and making sure that council is really comfortable with those, because I think those are easier for us to communicate and easier for everyone to really understand. The math that goes behind the traffic counting is tough. Most civil engineers don't try to understand traffic counts and things like that. It's really a niche engineering discipline that traffic engineers kind of keep it to themselves, and just like structural engineers do as well. From a broad stroke, it's certainly something that we can all delve into, but getting into the formulas involved with it and stuff, you can kind of, at least I can get lost in the forest for the trees on those. And so I think it's really important to think about when we have a development and we know what assumptions go into the study, and now we have these recommendations. It'd be really important to take a look at those recommendations and make sure that everything that council has a gut feeling on being done is being done. And if it's not, why not? And have that conversation at the end of the study.
So Rob, this is Ian. I've got so it sounds like we're trying to move from real counts, more or less, into a sort of directionality based approach. Is that how I'm understanding this correctly? So then I guess my question is, so the question is,
sorry, go ahead.
If schools are, sorry, there's a baby in the background if you guys can hear that. If schools are not in, then how do you account for directionality that may or may not be correct? In other words, what I'm saying is people will alter their routes to get their kids to school, and we could be 100% wrong the wrong way and say, hey, we need a left turn here. Come to find out, we really need something else to accommodate people who would be turning right if it weren't for school being in session. So I have that concern about how you adjust for that.
Right, and that's a good question, Ian. And what I mentioned earlier, kind of glancingly, I doubt anybody caught, but I talked about building a traffic template, and that's really the only model that you can do to account for that. There's a couple of software programs that are common for it. Synchro is probably the most popular, but it's part of that. You have to have balanced traffic, so you can't have a trip going to a generator without one coming from it and getting back to its destination. So you do have to go through and do an iteration process where you go through an infinite number of iterations until you narrow it to zero. But in that program, in that process, it can be done by hand, but it takes a really long time. You have to have all your traffic studies put into that, all of your traffic generators put into that, and you have to have your base model. Now, we do that now, but our base model now, we try to narrow it so that we're getting the cleanest look at a snapshot in time. I don't see a clean look coming that I'm comfortable with for probably 2 years. As far as when we'll be able to take a traffic count and feel like it's good. I mean, our economy has shifted dramatically to people working at home in addition to the school issue. I do think even if schools and when schools open, that you're going to have a substantial portion of parents who choose to do online schooling or homeschooling. So really, I mean, if I date back to when we kind of stopped these back in March, I don't think next March any of us would feel comfortable doing a traffic count and feeling like it's reliable snapshot for the future. I think you'd be pushing out 12 months, 18 months, maybe 24 months before we all feel like, okay, this is the type of situation we were dealing with in 2019 and feel comfortable with it. So at that point, your only options are to not do them, not do TIAs, or to do one and put a bunch of safety factors and assumption factors in so that we get it as close as we can to what we feel like is reasonable traffic. And from the directional flow stuff, you're right. It's not very it's not easy to think about how do you determine where somebody's going to go, but it just becomes a math exercise of, if you have 4,000 cars traveling this way and 3,000 the other way, where do we distribute those additional 1,000? And you use a couple of factors. You use turn counts that we've already gotten over the last 4 years at these intersections. You use growth factors, and then you have to balance that so that nobody's taking a left out that wasn't taking a right in. They have to be equal.
All right, thanks. So it's my understanding that is this a temporary measure? How long is this going to last for? Is it going to be revisited every year by council? If it is indeed a temporary measure, which it appears to be. And then secondly, if we're going to kind of err on the side of being conservative, if say it was, I think as Haynes explained, if you're a C or close to being a C, we would make the assumption we were a C, and council would ask for that improvement to be made regardless. Do we have any legal exposure for making that decision?
The only, and I'm not going to play attorney for Rich here, but I'll say from a staff perspective on our ordinance, it gives staff the authority to request improvements at any level. So it says you have to do them if this happens. If you lower it a full level of service, you must do it. And the only exception to that is a council exception, and the only exception in the grader. So if we require one that isn't required, staff can just require that because we feel like it's an improvement that needs to be done. So Harrisburg is very unique in that regard, and that I think when Haynes says about the other communities having a lower standard for TIAs, that's certainly feedback we get constantly from the development community, is that, man, you guys have the toughest, this is, blah, 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 we don't want to do this. And I say, well, the ordinance says we can do whatever we want. So you can win staff and council support or not, but either case, this is what you have to do.
And just further on that, Ian, so these recommendations for both the public hearing and the TIA are sort of temporary until we return to some resemblance of normalcy. However, I know we've been focusing heavily on the TIA process, but on the public hearing process, I would even encourage council to consider making that a permanent adjustment moving forward, in terms of having the public hearing one meeting and waiting until the following meeting before casting their vote on an item. I just think there are so many benefits for us to do that, and several communities already use that same process, so it wouldn't be abnormal for us to go that route. But overall, yes, we're referring to temporary items. However, of course, council can consider what they want to do moving forward, but staff would recommend separating the public hearing and the actual vote for those rezonings.
Hey, this is Councilman Russo. Rob, thanks for that long-winded report. Now I forgot the question I wanted to ask, but
that was the goal.
I know it was. Nice try, but I sort of agree with Ron. I mean, let's find out what some other communities are doing. And if we did a TIA and it didn't come out right in the past, shame on us. I'll tell you that. But there again, I'm not a traffic study guy or any kind of study guy, but
So just a little clarification on that. So as you know, Rob and I have both alluded to, our processes and our requirements in Harrisburg are significantly more stricter than others. Are we open to reducing ours if you find out that, you know, because we can easily confirm, you know, that information to you, and we'll be glad to get that to you. But I think everyone's aware of how stringent and strict our requirements are, as they've heard from developers that come before them over the last couple of years.
I agree, but I don't want to make a mistake now in this time of not getting the improvements we deserve. Do we have any developments coming in front of us? Is this a big thing coming up or anything? I mean, I don't know. I don't see anybody coming running to us for development right now.
You know, I think it's a big deal for us because, as Rob mentioned, a return to normal. So under the current process for how we conduct TIAs, if we were to pause and say that we are not going to consider any commercial or residential development until a TIA can be done as we are used to doing it, then you are probably 1.5 to 2 years away from ever considering any new development in the town of Harrisburg. So if that's a stance that council wants to take, you know, certainly that's fine. Staff will support that. But we're trying to offer a process that doesn't bring business in town to a halt. And what I mean by business is development business, so commercially, residentially, because right now, unless you give us discretion to move away from how TIAs are currently done, we are basically putting all development on hold until that normalcy is returned. And none of us know when that normalcy will be. And I just believe it's going to be further out than we expect it to be. So, but of course, council will take any direction council wants to give. But we're sort of facing that, you know, we're going to shut everything down for the foreseeable future unless we come up with a ability to move forward during these COVID times.
It's just to add on the urgency on this matter, we do have, Rick, there are like 4 projects that I can think of that are waiting on TIA. And because of the path forward for TIA not being clear, those projects are essentially on pause. So until we figure out a direction, those 4 projects are pending.
Well, I'd make it as stringent as you can then, because we're going to end up getting the raw end of the deal again.
Yeah, a lot of the communities, I think what Rob shared is what they do. They use the growth factor as much as they can. We already use 2% growth factor, but there is definitely opportunity to adjust that to meet our needs, and also to use the existing counts where we have. So it's a multiple approach we have to use. And of course, we're gonna consult with the traffic engineer and CDOT and try to come up with a solution that we, Rob and myself, are comfortable before we bring those recommendations to you.
And trust me, staff hears the concern from council about, you know, you said the phrase raw end of the deal, Rick, and I know that council has that experience and that taste in their mouth from past developments. And I want to assure you that the existing staff that's in place now wants to avoid that at all costs. Now, I've been here just over 3 years. There's not a single development that we have approved. There's actually 2 developments that have been approved under my watch that have actually come to begin construction. So while we have approved a handful of them, only 2 of them have actually begun to move forward. So all of our experiences and everything that we're living with are based on previous staff and previous decisions and previous even ordinances too. Our ordinances and our policies and procedures have improved so dramatically over the last, 3 years, especially. Rob has done a great job of implementing several new standards for development. So we share that same concern with you. And I can promise you that that's in the back of every staff member's mind when we are assessing these projects, is we are asking for every single inch that we can get out of these developers. We've run some off and we've scared some some off, and some of the things that we ask for, make it cost prohibitive, and we understand that. But we share that same concern with you where we don't want to look back and say, oh, well, we should have or could have gotten this out of that particular development.
Don't you still think it's worth like seeing what some of our neighbors are doing? Because everything else we do, it's always about what's another town doing, or do you think that we're more stringent than the rest of them and it doesn't matter?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that we are more stringent than the others, that if we went back and looked at the requirements of others, I would highly doubt that you would find one that would be more stringent or strict than our requirements, and you would find many of them who are less stringent than ours. And that's coming from my experience both here in Harrisburg and other municipalities in the Charlotte region.
If I may chime in, Councilman Selberg here. So I'm currently speaking with 3 of the projects that are before planning and zoning right now. And yes, they are asking us to back down off some of our stringent guidelines that we have within the community, where I continue to hold that line on saying that, not just myself and current council, but there have been people that sat on the dais way before me that put those in place to build our town the way that it currently is. So I do get to hear what's being said by these developers, but more importantly, back to what Ian had spoke to, is there a way that we can get you to come back to us in a year's time when we better understand what this COVID traffic situation is going to be? Are people working from home at the schools? I mean, I'm very understanding of my fellow council members and some of their questions, and I have some of the same, but we need to move forward as a town, but more importantly, we need to keep open dialogue with staff on these changes, and I would like to see it come back before us in a very near future if we give you direction tonight.
And just my thoughts on that, council, is, I was going to mention that earlier with Ian, but I wasn't quick enough to jot it down. Sorry, Councilman Patrick. Sorry to be so informal. But I would review that from your guys' standpoint. I would be asking that question if I was a council person on every project. So obviously, on TIAs that come before us within the next month or two, we're all operating on that. But if you start to get a feeling in December that this isn't working and there's a TIA going on, by all means, open up that conversation and have it, because we just don't know when, right? I mean, it could be 6 months and we feel like, hey, everything's popped back, or this could be a long-term, almost permanent work shift where companies have discovered, hey, we're very productive with remote work, and school is very productive with remote work, and so we can split shifts and things. So, rather than having kind of an on or off switch, I would just say, every single TIA that comes before you, I would question how we're doing it, and is that way appropriate?
I'm fine with the hearing side of it. I'm struggling to believe that we're the only one that does TIAs. I mean, you're sitting here saying that, we're the only one this stringent, but other towns have got to be doing TIAs. I don't understand how they're accomplishing their TIAs. And I'd like to push that decision out for a month. I'd give the motion for the hearings, but not right now for the TIA.
So you want to do this a piece at a time? Let's go ahead and handle the motion that he just made for the hearings, if that's what you want, Ron, and knock that one out real quick.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and motion to do the hearings as prescribed.
So do we want to go permanently in that fashion so then they can formalize this going forward and not make that temporary? I know it was something that we've talked about even a couple of months ago, Rodney. I know we talked about it.
Yeah,
We have, Mayor. I'm sorry, Ryan. I just want to be sure that we have the right direction when we put that in place permanently, Mayor, that we're being sure that we tighten up the procedure and the rules of how things can be spoken, and that it's most relevant to as if we were in person in the chambers, and how the audience and the residents address the diocese, and the comments that are down here in the chat really need to be addressed going forward. So I hope that we can tighten this down, and that we can get possibly a assistant or another co-host to also monitor these things as we go forward in public hearings and the Zoom process.
Okay. So we got a motion on the floor by Ron do you want to go temporary, and as we start to define the permanent process and then come back, how about we do it that way just to make sure everybody's covered?
Correct.
Okay. So I got a motion on the floor. Jay wants to repeat the motion. We got a motion on the floor to do the temporary changes for the public hearing process, followed by a permanent process to be discussed later. So the current motion is just to install the temporary process, and staff will go back and start to drive out a permanent process similar to what we're doing.
Yeah.
I will second that.
We got a second by Councilman Troy. Any more discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. I will go down the list. Councilman Ron.
Aye.
Councilman Rodney.
Aye.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
Aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond. We did it again.
No. Aye.
All right, so now let's go back to the TIA situation that we have. So we can choose nothing, and then we're kind of stuck. So we really need to come up with something back to staff to drive us out. And maybe it's to go investigate a little bit more what others are doing, because we know the numbers are not going to be right for a while. We know some of the developments may not be even situated around a school situation, even if they were there. So we just probably need to be cautious on how we're either going to start or stop that, and understanding exactly where the situation is. Because if it's way in the back or whatever, it's not near either schools, the school impact is not there. So what direction do you want to give staff to come back to us in the next 30 days?
Mayor, I'm just thinking that I think what some of us don't like is when we're doing a development that staff says we asked them for this and they didn't give it to us, there's nothing we can do. So I don't know if that has anything to do with this, but make it as hard as you can make it on them, and let's go for it. But maybe we should go do it for 6 months and see what happens. Like I agree with Haynes. I think it's a long-term deal here. I don't think this is going to be over anytime soon, which I really wish it was. But
I'm going to trust in staff that they're going to continue the stringent guidelines that they currently have. And I also will take that staff will continue to move in the conservative direction. So I will motion that we approve this and allow staff for a period of 6 months. Try this, as Councilman Russo said.
We got a motion on the floor to execute the modeling of TIA information for the next 6 months.
Second.
Right, properly seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. I'm going to go down the list. Councilman Ron.
Nay.
Councilman Rodney.
Nay.
Councilman Ian.
Aye.
Councilman Rick.
aye.
Councilman Troy.
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we'll check it out for 6 months and see how this goes.
Yeah, and we will be sure to do our best. I know that's a lot. That's a different process. It's moving more from data to staff interpretation. And as Rob mentioned, we will make sure we clearly communicate everything to you guys. Anything that was potentially available as an improvement, we'll do our best to show that to you. And as he mentioned as well, don't hesitate to ask staff. If something just doesn't look right to you, or you may be expecting a different type of improvement to come out of a project, then please let us know. Having now that month between the public hearing and the vote also gives us time to flush that out for you guys. So, you know, as you get the information in your packets, and again, that's a lot to process, as you process that for that month of time, then don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be glad to work with you and answer any questions.
Mayor, if I may address council.
Yes, sir.
So there is a development that has gone through the zoning process that is bordering Harrisburg. It is in Mecklenburg County. I've been made aware of this through some of the businesses here in Harrisburg. Also been involved with the rezoning process and some of the traffic studies and what's being done with the traffic, which I've communicated with our town staff. Later on, as I have more information, I will share that with you. But as communities, not just us, but communities that border our town limits start to develop, it's going to impact what happens here in Harrisburg. So I want to make you aware of that. And as I have that information and that clarity, I will push it out to you.
Any other questions or comments? Can you guys hear me? I had to switch back to the laptop. Can you hear me? All right, here none. We'll move to the next item, Auburn subdivision plat extension.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The agenda in front of you is to approve the preliminary plat time extension request from the applicant. Here is the map of where the subdivision is. This is towards north of Harrisburg, off of Blackwalder Road and Lakeland Drive. This project was approved a couple of years ago. Council reviewed the preliminary plat and approved after the Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval. So one of the requirements in our UDO is that once the preliminary plat is approved, the applicant should go through the process of construction documents review and record at least the first phase of subdivision final plat within 2 years. In this case, the approval timeline is expiring as of July 2020, and that applicant doesn't have enough time to record that subdivision plat. The ordinance also grants town council authority to allow a 1-year extension after review and recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Board. We did take it to the Planning and Zoning Board for review and approval of the preliminary plat that was previously approved. Also wanted to make a note that staff is currently reviewing the construction documents, and we are confident that it is unlikely between now and end of July the applicant will be able to record a subdivision plat. So that extension of previously approved preliminary plat is critical for the applicant to continue with the construction document review. And we're asking council's consideration today to extend that approval timeline by a year or so, from July 2020 until July 2021, which will allow them another 12 months to go through the construction documents review process and record their subdivision plat. As I mentioned earlier, we took this in front of the Planning and Zoning Board at their last month's meeting, and Planning and Zoning Board recommended that Town Council review and approve the extension request. Here is just a preview of the preliminary plat. Again, we're not talking or discussing approval or disapproval of content of the preliminary plat today. It is simply there as an information item for you. The request in front of you is whether to extend the time frame of approval from 2 years and adding on additional 1 year so that they can continue with the construction documents review. Staff has reviewed the extension request, and we determined that it complies with our UDO requirements as specified in Article 6. Planning and Zoning Board also recommended approval by Town Council. As such, staff is recommending that the Town Council approve the time extension request of a year for this previously approved preliminary plat 2018-01S. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Council, any questions?
Hey, Sushil, question. This is Councilman Dellinger, especially since we're just talking about the TIA. Has the TIA been done for this? And if so, would it be required to be done again since we're given an extension? If so, would it go under the new process? I mean, can you enlighten me, please?
I believe a TIA was done, and there are certain improvements, traffic improvements that were associated with this project. Those will continue. The TIA is typically done during the rezoning process and not during the preliminary plat. So as the rezoning for this subdivision was approved, all of those improvements were approved by the council. So nothing is changed. We're not changing the lot counts. We're not changing the orientation. So the project impact remains unchanged. So the traffic impact mitigation will remain unchanged as well.
And I appreciate that and understand that. I'm just trying to understand, is there ever a limit that the traffic study has to be redone if the project's not begun within X amount of years?
So I think the preliminary plat is that limit that's established in the ordinance. So when we do the TIA, as we discussed in previous agenda items, you look at 3, 4, 5 years out, depending on the size of the project. I think with this subdivision where it is located, staff is confident that that time horizon was captured and the traffic improvements coming out of this are still relevant. And that is why I think there is that 2-year time limit and then only 1-year extension. So let's say 1 year from today, the project, the applicant is unable to go through the review and record the plat, then the preliminary plat becomes void. At that point, it has to come through the process as a fresh preliminary plat. And at that time, we have opportunity to review if we need to revisit TIA requirements.
Not trying to be difficult, just trying to understand and gain knowledge. Do you know when that traffic study was done, if it was representative of the new middle school that's being built basically right there at Blackwelder and Roberta?
That middle school would not have been accounted because that information only became public a few months ago.
Right. So I'm just checking, but we feel confident that those traffic counts would encompass that type of growth, correct?
At this point, based on what we've seen in the assumptions and growth factors and traffic counts used for this subdivision and the number of homes that are being built, there will not be additional impact.
Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion for the plat extension.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion on the floor by Councilman Troy,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Diamond. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Councilman Ron,
Aye.
Councilman Rodney,
Aye.
Councilman Ian,
Aye.
Councilman Rick,
Aye.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Let's move to appointments to the Planning and Zoning Board.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. The next agenda in front of you is to consider appointments to the Planning and Zoning Board. We do have 3 vacancies. The terms of those 3 members expired at end of June. We posted the application on our website, social media. That was posted on May 21st, and the application for the vacancy closed on June 15th. we received a total of 8 applications. 3 of those were incumbents who wanted to continue serving on the Planning and Zoning Board. The Planning and Zoning Board has established a process to review the applications and how they make those recommendations for who to appoint to the board. Typically, in a situation where there are non-incumbents, so people on the current board decide not to apply. So in that case, they typically, or they've always, in that case, let me correct that. If there were not incumbents, they've always interviewed those candidates to find out the right fit for the Planning and Zoning Board. In the case of incumbents, if there are folks who are currently serving, whose term expired and they want to continue serving and have submitted their application, Planning Board do not interview those applicants. Basically, based on their working experience with them and subject matter expertise they bring to the table, they've always recommended reappointment of those incumbents. Unless there are issues with attendance and some other problems, we've always recommended reappointment. In this case, because all 3 members applied for reappointment, even though there were 8 applications, those other 5 applicants were not interviewed by the Planning and Zoning Board because they did not see the need, given that they were comfortable with those 3 incumbents and wanted to make those recommendations in front of the town council. Of course, town council has the final decision on who serves on the Planning and Zoning Board, but what is in front of you is the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board as your advisory board to reappoint Andy Rathke, Thelma Chapman, and Jake Carpenter to the Planning and Zoning Board. And that appointment is for 3 years, and their term, if appointed, will expire on June 30, 2023. With that, I'll open for any questions you may have.
Excuse me, Shashil, Councilman Smith. So I want to say on Park and Rec, when they have terms expiring, the first question is are you reapplying? If you are, then there's not a vacancy and it doesn't get advertised. I think, while I understand you're saying these folks are wanting to stay in, I think we're doing a disservice to the folks that applied if they thought that there was positions actually available, because right now, based on the way it's been operating, there's no positions available and it shouldn't have been advertised. I mean, I'm not saying that those 3 shouldn't be appointed, but I think we're going to find ourselves in a situation where people won't apply if this is going to be the practice going forward. I talked to Haynes earlier today, and I'd like to see that we adjust our process. I'd like to extend this out for 60 days and at least give these folks the time that they put into it back and have interviews with them. I'll open it up for anybody else.
I will take any direction from the council at this point. I'm simply recommending what the Planning and Zoning Board recommended. And we are happy to review the process we have in place to align with what your expectations are moving forward.
Councilman Selberg, I'll agree with Councilman Smith on that. These people have put their time and effort into wanting to serve within our community. And I remember when I filed how important it was for me to get that. But I think we have a formality here, and I believe that moving forward, we need to make sure that when people apply, that they do, in fact, get that interview. But what I would like to do is I would like to motion to approve the positions that have been recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board. And secondly, I would like to add to that moving forward, that we make sure that everyone that applies gets interviewed.
We got a motion on the floor to approve the recommendation in addition to making the process such that everybody will be interviewed going forward for any new positions on the Planning and Zoning Board.
Second.
Properly seconded. Any more discussion?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Russo here, Mayor. I agree with Ron. I think, I don't know about 60 days, but 30 days, but I think we need to interview everybody that applied. And if it ends up being the same three, I'm totally fine with it. But I talked to Haynes earlier also, and I agree with Troy partially. Everybody should get an interview, but I don't believe it should be next time. I think it should be this time. So I will be voting no on that motion.
This is Councilman Dellinger. I agree with Councilman Russo, Councilman Smith, that I think they pretty well knew that they were going to reapply. And if this was the case, we could have actually started the process in April, so we could have gotten these interviews in. I think everyone needs to have the opportunity to show our residents that we are upfront and have the need for them to apply and be part of the process.
Any more comments? And hearing none, we'll all in favor say aye. Councilman Ron,
Nay.
Councilman Rodney,
Nay.
Councilman Ian,
Nay.
Councilman Rick, Councilman Rick,
Nay, Mayor.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond, did it again. Councilman Diamond.
Aye.
Okay, motion fails. I need a new one.
Your new motion is to extend the positions, the current position 60 days, so that those individuals will stay on until the interviews can be held. The agenda's already been set for this month. So this would allow, actually, Haynes, would it not be 90?
So
No, I think that you could get by with this 60 days. That would give the existing board time to interview
Okay.
the 5 new applicants. Probably not in time of their July meeting, but certainly we should be able to, well, I guess, yeah, to your point, might be August meeting of the planning board, which would then be the September council meeting before the council could consider that. But that still is a 60-day extension of the current term, should get you through to the September council meeting where council can make those new appointments.
All right. And actually, Mayor, I think it would probably be 2 motions, the 60-day extension, but I also would like to motion that we update all of our committees to reflect that same, if it's not the process today.
yeah, I agree. I think that's probably appropriate if that's the method we'll go down. I'm just going to throw this out. So they go through the interview process and the Planning and Zoning Board still recommends the same 3. Is that going to be a problem?
No.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
And just to update for everyone, across all of the bylaws or rules of procedures for each of the advisory boards that we have, there's no requirement to have that interview. They only are required to review the applications, but not actually have a physical interview. So we can look to, based on the input from you guys tonight, we can look to make that adjustment in all of the advisory boards rules of procedure.
That was my motion that I put on the board at first. I do support Councilman Smith in what he says about extending the current people so that this process can take place.
So we got a motion on the floor. Who seconded that, or did I get a second? Nobody. I need a second on that.
Councilman Dellinger.
Second, Patrick.
We got Mr. Dillinger jumped in first. So we got a motion on the floor properly seconded to extend for 60 days to go through the interview process and then come back to council with recommendations.
As well as require the
Other boards to also follow suit with the new process, and I guess we get updated in their bylaws appropriately.
Can I ask a clarification question?
Sure.
In terms of interviews, is there expectation to interview the incumbents as well?
I'll go back to council. It just seems if they want to be part of the process, they probably should go through the interview process.
Yeah.
I think everybody should be treated fairly, level playing field.
So all candidates will be interviewed going forward and all boards.
Mayor, if I may suggest, I think this is actually two separate motions. One, changing the bylaws, that the process gets done, and then the original motion on the floor.
It's a
by
60
Mr.
day.
Smith.
Yep. Right. So I'm at the first one. We got a 60-day extension on the existing members to go through the process of interviewing everybody that is in, that would like to be part of that board. And we got to properly second it. So I'm going to go to a vote. If there's any more discussion, talk now. All in favor, say aye. Going down the list, Councilman Ron,
Aye.
Councilman Rodney,
Aye.
Councilman Ian,
Aye.
Councilman Rick,
Aye.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
All right, so the next motion will be to make sure that this process is now equal across all boards within the town.
Mayor, I would motion that we make adjustments to bylaws, not just within the planning and zoning, but within all of town boards, that we go through the process of interviewing any candidate that would like to sit in that position.
Got a motion on the floor,
Second, Smith.
properly seconded. Any more discussion? And going down the list, all in favor say aye. Councilman Ron,
Aye.
Councilman Rodney,
Aye.
Councilman Ian,
Aye.
Councilman Rick, Councilman Troy.
There, sorry about that.
Yep.
Aye.
Councilman Troy, Councilman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving along, contract with Walker Construction Decommissioning Pump Station. Who's got that?
That's me. I'll get it going here.
Hope your sound is better this time.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I'll blame somebody else. Let me share the screen here.
She left his out. So Rob tried to do it.
There we go. That everybody see the presentation now?
Yes, yes, you got it.
Sorry, I got a lot of head nods and I wasn't looking up. All right, so the item you guys have here, much less complicated than TIA's, Britley Pump Station Decommission Project. The background for this project is that the town has identified, as most of you know, several pump stations across the town that we can decommission and take offline. We do that by extending the gravity sewer from the growing network. So every time a development goes in, or we have a little extension here or there, we will go and analyze whether or not our pump stations can be decommissioned. So one of the ones that we identified is this contract tonight. It's Britley number 2. The benefits of decommissioning are many, but I kind of named 5 bullet points here, which are lower electric cost. Every one of these requires electricity, backup generation in order to pump the solid waste uphill. And the lower labor costs due to long-term maintenance. We also get greater capacity from gravity feed. We can use larger pipes, and you don't have the restrictions involved with gravity feed. As long as the elimination of upgrading those in the future. Every one of these has multiple pumps, and you have to take those offline and upgrade those every 15 to 20 years. From the original build date, and then as needed thereafter. And then you also have a lower permitting responsibility as a town. So we have to permit all of our sanitary sewer system annually. and pump stations have quite a higher inspection schedule and maintenance schedule. This project in particular was originally, we'll go back one slide here. So if you look at the picture here, this was originally a larger project. So you can see our gravity sewer run is in red on this graphic. And so it goes from the pump station at the bottom up to the purple line, which is a Wasatch interceptor. Originally, when this project was scoped out, it went up and to the right, kind of 3 purple dots, if you're looking at the color there, in order to not cross the stream. It wasn't thought possible at the time, and there was, again, a lot of permitting responsibilities for working in that stream. So originally, this project included a longer sewer run of about 1,350 feet, which ran parallel to Reedy Creek. Again, that was to avoid an aerial crossing at the creek or going underneath the creek. Obviously, that accounted for quite a bit different project than I have before you tonight. When we got a little bit closer to actually designing this project, town staff decided to take a look at it. It just seemed like, we had some elevations. It would be tight, but it might be something that was possible. So town staff redesigned the project and reduced the scope. We did that by performing engineering and survey in-house and doing a bore underneath the creek so that we could avoid working within the banks and eliminate most of our permitting. So we ran that by NCDEQ and made sure that we were able to get our permitting for this, and then finished the design on a smaller project. So the smaller project that you have tonight, as a result of that, it's about 400 feet of 8-inch gravity sewer as opposed to the 1,350. The design cost associated with that. So let's talk about what that meant for the overall project. The design cost we did last year for this, after we did the redesign, our original budget was $125,000. We reduced that to $38,000 by making that quite a bit smaller project. And then the real savings is in this year's construction cost. We didn't have this available until we could actually go out to bid. We had some thoughts for it, but the original project at 1,400 feet was about $861,000 that we had budgeted. This bid that you have before you is $236,300. Again, that additional money is due to that redesign. So this project altogether is going to come in for about $275,000 total. That's a savings of about $711,000 compared to the original design we had from a consulting firm that put this CIP together. And this project was going to be financed. So we'll also realize the long-term savings due to not having that debt service payment as well. The town will also reuse the equipment from the current pump station. So our pump station has generators and pumps and things like that. We'll pull all that out and repurpose it into our existing stations. So the recommendation that I have tonight, and these two graphics are just a little bit better visualization of both the contract value and what we're doing out there, as well as the location there in Britley. The recommendation is a motion to award the contract to DE Walker Construction to decommission Britley Pump Station in the amount of $236,300, and also to approve the related declaration of official intent to reimburse. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Any questions from council? And I'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved there.
Got a motion on the floor,
Second, Councilman Dellinger.
properly seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Councilman Ron?
Aye.
Councilman Rodney?
Aye.
Councilman Ian?
Aye.
Councilman Rick,
Aye.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next
Thank
up,
you, Mayor. Thank
financing
you,
of
council.
Fire Station 2. Fire Station Engine, Fire Engine 2. Nope. Oh, we got the other one jumping. F. All right. I thought I saw red something in already. All right. Red Clay Construction of Sims Parkway turn lane.
Good evening, council. Thanks for having me present this tonight. See if I can't get the screen up to share here. Are y'all seeing what is on my screen? Is the right screen up? Getting a head nod from Troy, so sounds like we're good. So we got Sims and 49 improvement. Granted, this is generally engineering's realm, but since it's tied to Harrisburg Park and that project, I'm still running with the presentation stuff. However, I do want to give thanks to Mallory Hodgkins for helping me put all the bid packet and helping get this lined up. So she really did the brunt of the work on this, and I'm appreciative of that. So moving on with this, I've got, there we go. Got just a slide to kind of visualize just where we're looking at on Sims and 49. Has a little bit of detail, kind of showing some of the points for the intersection improvement. Really, this is just for a turn lane, for sidewalk improvements and signalization. So as part of the Unified Development Ordinance, the town treats our projects the same as we treat private projects. We perform the same TIA traffic impact analyses as part of those. We're referring to this as part of Harrisburg Park's Phase 1 project. So that would be part of just the park construction. Phase 2 would be triggered, and those improvements as part of the TIA would be tied to when the YMCA comes online in that construction. So with this, we got here is we've got an original project budget that was $275,000. We had an engineer's cost estimate put together that was come out at $272,000, so very close to what our budget was. And as we ran the bids on this, we came in with 4 bids, and our lowest contract amount bid was $193,679.70. So real good news in the sense that we came in well under budget on this one. So that's a good one considering our past trends. We've recommended a 15% contingency be added to that, just in the nature of lateral projects and to cover any unknown unknowns. And even with that, that nets us a project savings of just shy, or just a little over $52,000 rather. The substantial completion on this project, which would be 95%, is at 90 days with final completion at 120 days. That clock will start ticking when Red Clay has a signed contract and we give them a notice to proceed, pending, of course, council's approval tonight. So with that, staff's recommendation is to recommend an approval of the contract for Red Clay Industries for the construction of Sims Parkway turn lane addition and signal modifications in the amount of $222,000, $222,731.66. I'll entertain any questions if there are any. And with that, I appreciate it, and I'll take any questions.
Hey, this is Councilman Dellinger. Isn't Red Clay one of the companies that we had issues with in Cabarrus Woods running stop signs and going fast over into Holcomb?
Mr. Dellinger, I'm not aware of that. If there's anybody else in the group that has any experience with that, that's not anything I've had experience with or been given any feedback that we've had previous issue. I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, I was hoping Haynes maybe knew.
I think it was, Rodney, this is Rob. I think it was all their vendors, including Red Clay, yes.
Okay.
Hey, Daniel, this is Councilman Russo. why the 15%, not 10? And if you do have money left over, where does it go?
So Councilman Russo, for the 15%, I can't specify. Engineering might be able to key in on that. Probably just a little bit extra, just in case there's some things that we're not aware of with any kind of site identifications out there that weren't caught on the early ends. I imagine just the 15% is just a little extra to cover anything on that. For the extra funding, this is out of the same project ordinance of the overall Harrisburg project. So the fundings that are in the savings queue would still be used in those some of those items that were spoken of at a previous council meeting for continuing to, identify our remaining items of the maintenance shelter, predominantly at the maintenance yard, that we have been kind of holding back on as far as having any funding to do anything with. There's a need for additional storage at that site where our maintenance yard is. With when it was previously used as the public works facility, there were some extra buildings there, but as part of the park expansion, we had to remove all but the primary maintenance shop. So with that, our event storage is going to be quite lacking. So our cost estimate was about $50,000 to build an additional 30 by 30 enclosed shed for our events and others, other storage needs. So ironically, this is pretty close to that amount. And then of course, we still got those other items of the landscape fencing and some grading exercises we're kind of massaging out as the project gets about to its final completion here in the next 40 to 50 days.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Hey, Daniel, it's Ian here. I believe in a previous council meeting, we discussed potentially getting some mast arms in this project. And we talked about go ahead and doing the design and bidding it as an alternate. So we had a real number for this project. And I didn't see any of that item in the bid tabulations.
You're correct, Ian. That was the discussion, and that is still remains the intention. For this particular part of the TIA response, the requirement was what we were focused on, which would be the items specific to the traffic impact improvements. The mast arms were more of the decorative or aesthetic improvements. So at the time we were at the pace and time we were at within the intersection improvement portion, we didn't have the design in there. So what we did do is when we came back to council and requested the extra 4,000, we did go back and get a design and get an engineer's cost estimate just as preliminary or explorative efforts of seeing if it was feasible, and then perhaps what would some costs be to administer those mast arms. And we did do that, and that information has been provided. So at this point, what we would do is engineering, Rob's crew would be moving forward with the process of getting the construction document portion and doing the mast arms as a separate part. According to Kimley Horn, who we worked with to do these intersection improvements, it's not uncommon to do like mast arm improvements after other intersection improvements have been made. And there should be, won't say there's not going to be any, but it should be minimal disturbance to the work that's being done now. So that was that was part of what we were doing, and that's what we are moving forward with, if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion on the floor. Have a second?
Second, Patrick.
Properly seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Going down the list, Councilman Ron,
Aye.
Councilman Rodney,
Aye.
Councilman Ian,
Aye.
Councilman Rick,
Aye.
Councilman Troy,
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we'll move to fire engine 2 financing.
Thank y'all very much.
Okay, so am I unmuted? Yep. For agenda item G tonight, we have the financing recommendation for the purchase of fire engine number 2. I wanted to give you a little status update on the construction of the fire engine. But first, a little background. The total project cost for the purchase of this engine was $615,000. The purchase price of the engine from the manufacturer is just over $595,000, and that order was placed on August 13th last year. I'm sorry, that should say 2019. The schedule right now, it is on schedule and has an anticipated completion date of August 7th, and we'll receive delivery of that truck and perform our delivery inspection sometime in the month of August. So a little about our RFP process for the financing of this truck. We worked with Davenport and Company, LLC again. They've helped us on a number of our debt issuances over the past couple years. And together we distributed an RFP for an installment purchase contract on June 5th. And that was sent out to over 100 banks. In that RFP, we included 2 options to be considered, a 10-year repayment schedule and a 15-year repayment schedule. The RFP was due back to us on July 1st. And on that day, we received 7 proposals. So here's a summary of the proposals that we received. You can see the banks going down the left side: First Bank, Home Trust, KeyBank, Pinnacle, Truist, US Bank, and Zions. And we've highlighted in green the best 10-year rates and then the 2 best 15-year rates. One thing you'll see here is that we have offerings from all these banks that are in the BQ and the NBQ column. And BQ just means bank qualified debt. And so what that is saying is we're committing that we are a bank qualified customer, meaning that we're not going to issue more than $10 million of debt in one calendar year. And so by being a lower risk a borrower, by not going over that 10 million mark, we can get a little bit better rates. So you can see the rates are slightly better for Truist on the bank qualified versus non-bank qualified, and same with Home Trust Bank. In looking at the payment schedule, we did not feel that the 15-year repayment schedule really provided us too much benefit. So we focused on the 10-year bank qualified column here. In addition to the interest rate, there's a couple other considerations in selecting a bank, and one of those is the prepayment provisions. So some of these banks have various prepayment provisions built into their offers. You can see that KeyBank kind of steps down year over year, and then after 5 years, we can pay it off at par. Truist gave us 101%, so a 1% penalty for the first 5 years, and then we can pay it off at par. And US Bank did not allow prepayment for the first 13 months, and then has a 3% penalty for the remainder of the loan. We also look at the bank closing cost and any sort of other fees associated with the issuance of the loan, and none of these banks that proposed on the fire engine had any of their own closing costs. So here's a summary of some of the payment schedule options, and you can see that Truist in column B, the bank qualified debt at 1.74%, gives us a repayment schedule ending in 2031 at a total cost of $671,240. So our recommendation on our next move is to select Truist for the 10-year bank qualified proposal. They provide the lowest total debt service cost, and they give us the best flexibility to prepay and hold any date during the loan with the lowest penalty. Some of our next steps, if this is approved tonight, is on August 10th, we will bring back a final financing contract for approval. And this rate that we've been offered expires on August 14th. So we would close with Truist on August 14th. So our suggested motion tonight is to approve the financing for the purchase of fire engine number 2 and select Truist Bank as our financing institution with the terms to include a 10-year repayment period at an interest rate of 1.74%. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Hey, Brian, you're asking for a lot of money the first night. You're the we want Lee back down there now.
Getting you a good rate though.
Lee never throw that much at us at once. Your first night. I like that. I'll make the motion to approve.
A motion on the floor to approve the motion is written.
Second, Smith.
Properly seconded. Any more discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to ask a question of Brian. Are we transparent with everyone who bid on maybe where they came up short after this is voted on?
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, this is out there for all of them to see, but Davenport, who works with us to issue this, they give that feedback back to all those banks. That's something that they ask for a lot when they propose. And so we do give that feedback back to them and tell them who we selected and why.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to go to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Councilman Ron?
Aye.
Councilman Rodney?
Aye.
Councilman Ian?
Aye.
Councilman Rick?
Aye.
Councilman Troy?
Aye.
Councilman Diamond?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're going to move to the Finance Director Oath of Office.
And Mayor, you'll get the oath of office for this. If you'll just read it aloud for Brian, we'll knock that one out.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Hey, don't we have to do the Bible thing over there somewhere? We don't have a Bible? We gotta have a Bible. Hang on one second. This has got to be official. So Brian's going to read this oath of office. Actually, I'm going to read it. He's going to repeat after me. He has hands on the Bible with his right hand up. There we go. I, Brian Lee, do solemnly swear
I, Brian Lee, do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain the constitutions
that I will support and maintain the constitutions
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as Finance Director
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as Finance Director
for the town of Harrisburg, so help me God.
for the town of Harrisburg, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
All right, so we had the added agenda item, and it's probably Brian's going to do it, so he's got to wait until he gets back to his desk.
I'll actually go ahead and start it while he gets back to his desk. So apologize for the last minute notice on this. Council, each of you should have received in your email inbox late this evening an updated agenda item for this. So originally this was put together as a pretty simplistic budget amendment as part of House Bill 1043. Coronavirus relief funding had been made available through the state that was passed down to the county to be distributed out to municipalities and also used by the county themselves to reimburse us for any expenses that we may have incurred related to our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So while we were not given funds to replenish any potential lost revenues, we have been given the opportunity to replenish potential expenses or incurred expenses as a result. So for us, things like purchasing of PPE for our public safety employees or just our general employees, sanitation stations, anything related to cleaning supplies. We've made updates to town facilities to help limit the amount of touch points within our facilities or limit the open air contact that employees may have when entering our facilities. So a lot of improvements internally have been made. And we will also continue to have PPE expenses and others as we move forward. Part of the allocation from Cabarrus County, they decided to use the sales tax methodology when determining the amount of money that is distributed out to the municipalities. Unfortunately, that wasn't equivalent to a lot of money for Harrisburg. The Cabarrus County got just under $3.8 million from the state. So I'll repeat that number, $3.8 million. The town of Harrisburg's allocation from that was just over $62,000 in total. The town has already had north of, or has identified north of $100,000 in expenses associated with our response to COVID-19. And so obviously the amount of money that we get from the county is not going to completely cover us, but certainly we are appreciative of that reimbursement. We were notified this afternoon from the county that we are going to be getting additional funding from them. So initially we were expected to get just over 62,000. We were notified today that we're going to get a little over 112,000 as a second allocation. So in total, we will be just north of $175,000. So in saying that, we have new numbers to update with the budget amendment, but at the same time, the budget amendment was previously prepared by allocating the new monies towards specific line items within all of our departments' budgets. So whether that was departmental supplies or information technology expenses, if it was related to workplaces and whatnot that we had, for instance, like computers and laptops, anything workplace related, as we have transitioned some of our staff to work from home. So we've gotten some new equipment associated with that to be able to continue to operate our services and provide our services without any interruption. And so those funds are going to be, or were proposed to be, allocated to individual line items of those departments. Now that we have a larger bucket of money for which to disperse from, we've sort of rethought that process. And what we're going to ask you to do tonight, and again, I won't spoil Brian's thunder here, but we're going to ask you to allocate all of the funding that we expect to receive from Cabarrus County through these coronavirus relief funds to a single line item that will be in the town council's department. And so what that allows us to do is to put these monies, earmark them in a specific department, and then be able to spend those funds from that for anything such as PPE or sanitation equipment or IT stuff or whatever that may be. What that allows us to do moving forward is, as we compare year-to-year budgets, we don't want to artificially inflate an IT line item or a departmental supply line item for various departments as we move these funds into them. So by putting it in a specific single line item under the council's department, it allows us to better track that moving forward. So I won't again spoil any more of Brian's thunder here on his first meeting as finance director, and I'll turn it over to him for his presentation.
Thank you. Well, I think you summarized it really well, but I'll just give a little bit more background here. HB 1043 established that coronavirus relief reserve in North Carolina, which was funded by the Federal CARES Act. So like Haynes said, Cabarrus County got a nice chunk of that money. And although they were not required to, they did decide to pass some down to municipalities. And when they did that, they opened the door for us wanting more. So that's what happened there. The purpose here was just to provide reimbursement and aid to local governments to assist in whatever their response is to COVID-19. And those expenditures needed to be between March 1st and December 30th of 2020. There's a couple of requirements to fall on us in order to receive this money. And one of those is to establish a special revenue fund. That is just a separate fund that we have to set up to show this money coming in, and then we will transfer it to the general fund to spend on or to reimburse ourselves for expenditures we've already made. We have to complete a CRF spending plan and submit that to Cabarrus County before we can receive our distribution. And we also need to submit monthly reports to Cabarrus County and know what we're spending the funds on or what we have already spent the funds on. Some of the eligible uses, like Haynes said, are different IT equipment, anything that assists with remote connectivity, health screening equipment, required communications such as the mailings we've sent out about Executive Orders 124 and 142, building and safety improvements, and then any cleaning and sanitizing products and services that we have. So the award that we got was just over $175,000. We have identified $28,000 of expenditures that we made in fiscal year 2020 that we're going to retroactively apply this money to. And then that leaves about 147,000 for fiscal year 21 for expenditures that we've already committed to as far as sanitation and other supplies, and then also expenditures to enhance our IT connectivity for our remote employees. So our recommendation tonight is to adopt the Special Revenue Fund CARES Act in fiscal year 20, and then approve the 3 budget amendments. And those 3 budget amendments take the revenue that we're establishing in fiscal year 20 and transfer it to the general fund. And then in fiscal year 21, we're recognizing that revenue again in the Special Revenue Fund and transferring it to the general fund. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I want to add to that just really quickly. So appreciate that update there, Brian. One of the things that we really, why we wanted to push and get this done as quickly as we could, otherwise we would have waited until our August council meeting. So again, I apologize for the last minute change, but we want to go ahead and reimburse ourselves for last year. But at the same time, we have commitment for new expenses that we've yet to incur because we just did not have the funds available to us. So we want to go ahead and get your approval for these funds so that they can be made available to us to go ahead and move forward with those purchases. Another conversation that I'll just kind of throw out there for discussion is, I know several council members have asked about the town doing a mask giveaway or a mask event for our residents where we purchase the mask or face coverings and allow those to be given out to our residents. Cabarrus County has been doing that. They've been using their CRF funds for that exact purpose, and they've been handing those out in county parks across the county. The closest to us has been at Frank Lisk Park, but if we wanted to take that on and do that ourselves, it is something that we could use a portion of that remaining $147,000 to do. I would recommend, limiting the mask purchase to maybe 3,000 or 5,000 masks to accommodate. That should be plenty for our resident. And so you would only need $15,000, $20,000 of that money to be able to do an event like that. And so just wanted to throw that out there as an opportunity for us to consider moving forward, or we can get direction from you now to go ahead and proceed with that. But we do now know that we would have the funding to be able to support a program like that, where prior to today's notification of these new dollars, we wouldn't have been able to afford that type of event.
Any questions from council or the wishes of council?
So Haynes, tonight we talked and we asked about requiring a face mask. If that were to be the case in the future, are we going to be purchasing any that if somebody does come in town hall and they don't have it and they want to transact business, here's a face mask?
Yes, so that was part of our already completed PPE purchases that we've done. We've geared up to have those public-facing pieces of our facilities have a box of disposable masks there for the public. So we're thinking disposable in that event. If we were to do a mask or face covering handout to the public, we would probably try to find a reusable option for folks. But I know that probably wasn't your question, but to answer your question, yes, we will have masks available for folks that enter our facility.
And did I hear correctly that there's only specific way these funds can be allocated because of the act? I mean, I'm getting more and more disheartened when I hear stories out there. Troy alluded to some today about some businesses that are not going to reopen, and I saw the June spike in people who are obviously struggling to pay their bills, and I suppose that's not even on the table for this funding.
It's not, as again, to your point, it is very limited about what the funding can be used for. I will say that the Cabarrus County has looked at allocating some of their CRF funds towards nonprofits. And so I don't know what that looks like and don't know, how far that will reach out. But I know they did earmark some of their funding for nonprofits throughout the county. For us, I would be concerned that the total amount, the $175,500 that we get, I would be concerned that that would be enough to get us through this entire process from, sort of start to finish in terms of PPE needs and equipment and sanitation needs. And again, $147,000 remaining in FY21 is not all that much money, unfortunately, when you consider about, business needs and looking to assist those folks.
I'll motion to adopt the funds, but I have no interest in the mask at this time. I'd rather us hold on to the money until we better understand what kind of changes are in front of us. It seems like every day the governor's making reconsideration, so I'd be more conscious and want to be better spending right now and just wait for additional needs.
I will second his motion.
We got a motion on the floor properly seconded. Any more discussion? To adopt the CARES Act in FY 2020. Any more discussion?
Steve, is that just to adopt it and not buy any masks? Or
You're not buying anything, nope.
Just keep disposables at the city in case somebody comes in and needs one.
Yes.
Right.
Fine.
Yeah, I think I'm clear in that it's not to move forward with any public mask distribution, but to just currently reimburse ourselves or move forward with expenses associated to our internal response to COVID-19.
Correct.
All right. If there's no more discussion, all in favor say aye. Councilman Ron?
Aye.
Councilman Rodney?
Aye.
Councilman Ian?
Aye.
Councilman Rick?
Aye.
Councilman Troy?
Aye.
Councilwoman Diamond?
Aye.
Motion carries. So that concludes our presentation for today. Do we have any action items?
The only action item that I have that was outside a new business item was the request from council to get an appraisal on the old Fire Station 2. So I'll move forward with doing that, but that'll probably come before you guys at a future meeting for a budget amendment. We'll use special project dollars in the council budget to get that appraised so that we can begin and make sure that we get that to market as quickly as we can.
Any other questions or concerns from council before we adjourn? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion
Motion to
adjourned.
adjourn.
Got a motion on the floor. Councilman Russo, seconded by Councilman Ron.
Yeah.
Let's have a discussion about that. All in favor say aye. I'm not going down the list.
Aye.
Aye.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Aye.
Night.